I'm still alive. Still kicking. I'm still here. Haven't had a video all week, but I'm still here. Started 17 minutes late, but I'm still here. I'm working on just a few hours sleep, but I am still here because Takeover Tuesday, like one of my favorite days. I gotta be here. Gotta be here if I can. All right. So I want to make sure everything is working. Like everything's working. Hawk Gaming, you just pulled White Queen and Cora. Congratulations. She's very good. Let's take a look at her. Hey, Alex. White Queen and Cora for you. So I did the fusion or whatever. I think she was a fusion, right? I did this fusion on my main account. And, excuse me. I did this fusion on my main account. And so I was already 3 years into the game when I got her, and I didn't get the White King, right? So that's important to recognize that on my main account, I have her, but I don't have him. And they're an incredibly powerful duo. But I tried to fuse her on my HH Challenge account, and I actually messed up. I came up just short. It was really frustrating. On that account, she would have been an absolute game changer, but on my main account, I don't use her. So just so you know, though, she's got a very good kit. I like this speed aura in all battles by 19%. That's kind of the standard, right? Like that's the standard good all battles aura. It's the same one that Haikatoon has. It's the same one that Cardiel has, right? It's the same one that Elva has. It's the same one that pops up again and again and again. Deacon Armstrong has it. You know, like there are a ton of epics and legendaries that have this 19%. And it may feel a little bit bad when you get somebody like a Cardiel and you're like, he's got the same 19% speed aura that Haikatoon has and all these other champions have. But I think realistically, you know, this has been one area where there hasn't been a lot of power creep in the game, like in this specific aura kind of scenario. There are a few champions who have higher speed auras. I think Mariska is one. Lysandra is one. There are a few others. There are obviously some mythics that have faster speed auras. And I think that's important because by keeping this speed aura at 19, you've given some leeway for those mythics to step into that gap and say, oh, we can go up to maybe 25% all battles. Because it's such a powerful aura, right? It's the only speed aura that gets used in Clan Boss. It's the only aura that gets used in Hydra. You know, it's the only aura that gets used in Siege right now, I think. So good aura. And I just wanted to talk about that. I've been thinking about that lately for some reason. I don't know why. It's not like because of her, you know, I've just been thinking about the speed aura. And she does have a really nice base speed of 111, 20,000, almost 21,000 HP, 1,200 defense. So decently tanky for a reviver, which is really good. 40 resistance, which is not the highest you see, but it's like you typically see between 30 and 50. So it's kind of in the middle. And she is a cleanser. Her A1 is good. This is an A1 we've been seeing more of lately. There are like 3 or 4 other champions that now have this same A1, basically, where you have a 50% chance of decreasing the cooldown of a random ally skill by 2 turns. I think it's 2 turns for most champions. Let's see. Is Podrick's 2 turns as well? Or is his 1 turn? It's 2 turns. So it's the same as Podrick's. A couple other champions who have it. And they've all come out, you know, in the last year. So it's a pretty solid A1. It's not a reliable A1, but it can be nice in a long fight in a speed tune to like come around back your damage abilities or whatever. The problem is, you know, the speed tune, I guess it would have to be a particular type of speed tune, because if you have turn meter fill or speed buffs that, you know, this could break a speed tune basically if the buffs come out at the wrong time. An AoE cleanse is always strong. This is also a shield. She's not a healer. She is a reviver and a cleanser. She doesn't have a block debuffs. So there's sort of a limit to how good she is. You know, like she has several of the pieces that you need, but she doesn't have all of it. So you would want probably a healer with a block buffs. I'm sorry, a block debuffs buff somewhere on your roster as well. And then she has a single target revive, which is pretty solid with 75% turn meter, and resets the cooldowns of the revived allies' skills. So this is like Godseeker Aniri's ability, right? To reset all of the cooldowns of the revived allies' skills. So this is a very strong single target revive. And then on her passive, this is actually pretty cool. Whenever an enemy tries to place a CC other than a sheep on the ally with the highest crit damage, it transfers those debuffs to this champion instead. It basically means in arena, your nuker won't get CC'd. She'll get them instead. And then she either gets 50% turn meter fill, or if Narcissus is on the team, it just cleanses her. She's like immune to it. Oh yeah. in the back of my head, who is that? Robert Palmer or whatever? She likes to think she's immune to this stuff. Oh yeah. But you're going to have to face it. You're addicted to love. Like, that's what I had going on in my head right there. Sorry. If you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, don't look it up because there's nothing good about it. Yeah. So that's her kit. So if you need a cleanser, she's a very good cleanser. If you need a reviver, she's a very good single target reviver. And if you have White Queen Narcissus, the duo is actually crazy OP in Arena. So that's what I have to say about that. Also, I got to do my little, I have to change my screen so I can see chat, see who's joined us. Hey, Medusa is here. Burso. The Nightbot. The Nightbot is in the chat. You got to love that. Selena Feline, good to see you, buddy. Grim Reaper. She's better than Duchess. I don't think so. I mean, with White Queen Narcissus, maybe, but Duchess is crazy good. Where can you use her? She's very good as an all-around support. So basically anywhere you need a cleanse or a revive, she gives you that. She gives you a little turn meter fill too, I think. So, but she's a very good arena champ. I definitely think you could use her depending on where your account is. She could be one of those champions you put everywhere. But I don't use her myself. So maybe you could ask some other people in chat. They might be able to help you out with better recommendations about where to use her. Hey, Ian, good to see you. Hope the exercises are helping. It's been a rough week, Ian. Silver Bullet. Gooder's FTP. Hey. Dabby 101. Yeah, she is good anti-lockout in Arena. Yep. You'd say I'm sleeping on her? Well, I have her at 6 stars. I think I have her booked. Let me see if I have. She is 60. She's built okay. I didn't try to make her crazy good. You can see I haven't glyphed her or anything. She's just got some extra pieces. She is booked. I have a blessing. I guess I haven't even picked her blessing yet, and she is fully mastered, but I haven't chosen her masteries yet. But here's the thing. This is my roster. So if we're just looking at my 6 stars, let's just look at my 6 stars. Got 141 6 stars. So sleeping on her is a relative term. It's I don't know where I would use her other than if I pulled White King Narcissus, and then I would use her in Arena all the time. But since I don't have him, I don't know that I have a place for her. I could use her in some kind of ally attack or counterattack situation where I get value out of her A1. I've thought about pairing her with Podrick to create some kind of cycle of cooldown reduction, because I don't have a reset champion other than Renegade. But it's never quite come together. It always feels like you needed one more champion than you can fit in the team. Hey, Hoax, good to see you. Ace, what's up, buddy? It's a hard choice between her and Mithrala at times. Really? I don't know about that. As far as a cleanser is concerned, you mean? I mean, Mithrala doesn't give you a revive, right? But Mithrala gives you so much more than Ancora, in my mind. I mean, Mithrala is, she's god tier, right? So she got the double hitter, you got the poison. It's 100% chance of 2 poisons, which is awesome. She's void affinity. You don't take, you know, you don't weak hit and you don't take strong hits. She's got the AoE Hex, which is an increased defense and increased attack. You can use that in Arena as well, because it's always giving you a damage boost for everybody except HP-based nukers. Then you've got the Cleanse, which is a crazy good cleanse with the Strengthen and the Shield. The one thing she doesn't have is a block debuffs buff, and I guess the 2 things, block debuffs buff and a revive, you know? And then she's got the Petrification. I don't know where I would use, I mean, other than Arena specifically with Narcissus, I don't know where I would use her over Mithrala. Bombs are good in Arena because of Stone Skin. Yeah, and I use Mithrala for that. I definitely use Mithrala for that. It's a lot easier to build her resistance than anybody else's resistance in the game. Right? This is the easiest champion to build resistance on, and she's a cleanser. Because of her passive, every single point of accuracy becomes a point of resistance. So you have 2 stats building her resistance. You can build her with accuracy, and then you can also, whatever resistance you happen to get on her, you get additional resistance. So if you look here, like I have 728 accuracy on her. She doesn't miss much, right? Plus, I have 271 resistance on her. So I actually have, I think I have 900, is that 999? Is that what that is? 950, 999 resistance on her in the actual fight. There's no way I can get 999 resistance on any other champion. I don't have good enough resistance gear or resistance rolls to get that. So she will always be the cleanser I can rely on in Arena the most to actually cleanse. Now, in addition to that, you can use block debuffs buffs. And so I have Cardiel for that. I have Pythion for that. Right, I have him in a Stone Skin, 2-turn Stone Skin, so he's actually my PvP cleanser, generally. I know that bombs, you know, it's problematic with bombs, right? Because, like, if he takes the hit, the bombs could still go off and kill him, and he can't cleanse anybody else. Or block debuffs. So he's a cleanser and a block buffs. I'm sorry, a block debuffs. Cardiel is a cleanser and a block debuffs. Elva is a cleanser and a block debuffs. You know, so these are the champions that I would probably rely on to save me from bombs. But really, it's Mithrala, because she doesn't get the bombs. It's like, you have to have 1,000 accuracy to land the bombs on my Mithrala. You know, so that's what I use her for. Start again, 999, just don't cut it, yeah. All right. Feral is bad, to be fair. Pinpoint is much better. Okay. No, I don't agree. I mean, you can like whatever gear you like, you know, but in terms of accuracy, first of all, these first 3 pieces are insane. 80 accuracy out of 3 pieces of gear that are all accessories. You could get 3 accessories here. The block debuffs buff is, it blocks everything. Right now, it can be removed, which is, you know, like, it's there. But if you come up against this block debuffs buff in Arena and you're just planning on, like, you know, not having that there, like, oh, I'm going to go first, I'm going to debuff everybody right away. And you're like, well, I can't debuff this person. That's problematic. That's one of the strengths of Stone Skin, right? So having block debuffs there, it's like having, you know, half a Stone Skin buff or whatever you would call it, because Stone Skin blocks debuffs block debuffs, blocks debuffs. Stone Skin has a 50% chance of being removed. This has, 100% chance of being removed if you have that removal. But then, here at 6 pieces, it has a chance to prevent polymorph. And then here at 9 pieces, allies deal 5% more damage per each debuff placed by the wearer with all that accuracy and speed. That's a crazy damage buff. And I like Pinpoint. I do like Pinpoint. I think it's a good set. But this is if you can, first of all, for a debuffer, it's arguably better at 3 pieces. It's arguably better at 4 pieces. And it's definitely better at 9 pieces. Right? So if you look at a Pinpoint gear, this is very good. This is the most speed you're going to get out of 2 pieces. And for speed and accuracy, it's excellent. So it's also good for debuffers. Grants a wearer 1 intercept stack at the start of the round. I actually think this is better for like cleansers, right? Than debuffers, which is a little bit weird. Not all cleansers are debuffers. Not all cleansers need accuracy, right? So this intercept stack is a little bit, there's some loss of synergy there. I think 4 intercept stacks is kind of redonkulous. Like, I don't know that going from 2 to 4 is really going to help you all that often. Although certainly for accuracy and speed, it's still excellent. But I think Feral's the better set. Unfortunately, it's the harder set to, well, it was the harder set to get. Now it's the only set you can get because we can't get Pinpoint. But hey, Civic, good to see you, buddy. Stark in the house. The Truth. Colred and Devin Townsend are the same person. When he's not screaming metal, he's gaming raid. Yeah. I don't know who Devin Townsend is. Now I'm going to have to look up Devin Townsend. Well, another bald, beautiful man. I understand the confusion. But I will say this, not all bald men who wear glasses look exactly alike. I mean, we look a little bit alike. I also look a little bit like, what's his name from ESPN? Scott Van Pelt, right? A little bit like Scott Van Pelt. All right. You're talking about meta, though? I still don't agree, Grid Rebirth. Like, it's cool. They're both good sets. So you're not going to get me to argue that, like, Pinpoint's not an awesome set. And I think as an all-around value, Pinpoint's incredibly valuable to put on almost everybody just because of the speed. Like, even if you don't need the 20 accuracy from the first piece, the 10% speed from the second piece that you get is so incredibly strong when you're talking about accessories that, yeah, I would say, the overall value to, like, my account is going to be much higher. That doesn't make the set better. Like, I kind of make a distinction between valuable, like, in a broad sense, and power in a narrow sense, right? So, for instance, if I built 1 champion in Feral versus 1 champion in Pinpoint, Feral is going to be better, is going to be more powerful, it's going to be better for your team composition, it's going to be more powerful for that individual champ than a full 9 piece of Pinpoint. However, across my account, Pinpoint is going to be like Perception. Perception isn't the strongest set in the game, but it's the most useful set in the game in the broad sense, because you will need more pieces of Perception gear than any other set. I think it has surpassed Speed at this point. Right? Like, it used to be that, like, Speed was the most desirable set, and then Pinpoint was kind of Perception was kind of number 2. But I think now it's like I just want great pieces of Perception because I put Perception on so many people. Like, Speed goes on people that don't need accuracy, but everybody needs accuracy these days. There are so few champions that don't need accuracy, and if they don't need accuracy, often they have to be in a different set than Speed. Right? You're like, oh, well, my nuker needs to be in Savage or in Merciless or in, something high damaging, right? So, like, Speed now just goes on champions who need only speed and nothing else in their kit. And there are so few champions that need that. So, like, Speed has gone from, oh, I'm going to put 6 pieces of speed on somebody, to all right, if I don't have 6 great pieces of perception, I'll put 2 of speed in there, mix it in. Pinpoint Stone Skin is nasty. Yeah, sure. I get you. Hey, Live Wild. Yobi Yubinski's in the house. Sean Mallet, good to see you. It's Chars. Hey, Chars. All right. Yeah, I mean, listen, everybody in Arena is going to look for a particular advantage. You're going to look for something, right? But so you're going to mix the pieces. The meta is going to shift when a new set comes out. I don't know. It felt like early on people were sleeping on Pinpoint, and right away, I was like, Pinpoint's very good. And then I saw content creators, and maybe it was just because I hadn't watched the other content creators, but a lot of content creators that I watch were talking about how good Pinpoint was. And I really tried to push it the last 2 weeks because I knew the event dungeon was going to go away. And there was so much other stuff going on, you couldn't really find time to just farm Pinpoint gear. And I had a lot of people say, I'm getting garbage Pinpoint gear. And I get it. But because you can get accessories, look here, on this Mithrala, I've got a 5-piece, amulet here. I was 5-star amulet. I can't talk today. I've got a decent ring here. They're both rares, but the set bonus is so strong. I'm getting 20% additional accuracy and 10% additional speed that I would not get otherwise from my gear. If I just had normal accessories, right? So that additional value is so incredibly valuable. Now, if you're talking about the intercept stack, that really depends on the style of team that you're running. I don't care about the arena meta. I really don't. I never have. I'm a free-to-play player. What's meta to a free-to-play player? Whatever you got. That's what's meta. I got to gold live arena with nobody in Stone Skin. Not one champion on my account was in Stone Skin when I got to gold. And then eventually, just to make it a little bit easier to farm some stuff, I put 2 champions. I have 2 champions in Stone Skin on my account. I have Pythion in Stone Skin, and I have UDK in Stone Skin. They're both in 2-turn Stone Skin. Actually, I lied. I added a 3rd champion a few weeks ago. I added Nishak Verminlord in a 1-turn Stone Skin. And could I put Pinpoint on him? Yeah, but I have the perception. I'd like to get him into Pinpoint accessories, but I haven't rebuilt him since I did that. So I'll probably do that. That'll give him a little more speed, a little more accuracy, which is good. I could also do Feral. If I happen to have Feral, this would give me more accuracy, and he needs the accuracy more than speed. So I would actually prefer Feral in this particular case. So maybe this amulet and this ring, that might work for me, even though it's got attack percentage. I might lose a little bit of attack here, but I'm going to get 40 additional accuracy from those 2, pieces. And I don't mind losing, these aren't phenomenal. I don't even know why I ascended this to 6-star. Why did I do that? I have no idea what I did that for. You want an attack amulet on a bomber, but that's weird. So, so my point being, meta is, I don't think there really is such. I think a meta is kind of a collective hallucination, if you will. I don't think there is a meta. Right? It's just chess. It's just play and counterplay. It's trying to predict what your enemy's going to do, trying to find a counter to that. When people get stuck in a meta, it's because, 50, 60, 70% of people don't really want to think about it. They want to just build they want to do research. They want to find the strongest build. They want to put that on their champions, and then they don't want to think about it. Whereas the other 20 or 30 or 40% of people are constantly thinking, okay, well, there's a new meta evolving. I have to be ahead of the curve. How do I counter the current meta? You know, and that's where I live because I'm free to play. So I'm just like, how do I counter the meta? The only reason I care about the meta is because I just care about what I'm seeing my opponents use. And so if they're all using the same stuff, that's great for me. I love when people get stuck in a meta because I'm like, okay, now I can figure out counters for that meta and I can be effective against all of my opponents because they're all stuck in the meta. That's awesome. So it's like, what's meta? Who cares? I don't care. I mean, I'm not trying to criticize people who are like using the meta to their advantage either. Like, that's a good thing. Like, if you know what the meta is and you have the strongest of those pieces, then great. But if you're constantly chasing stronger players who are using the same tactics that you're using, you will always be behind them. You can't catch a stronger account using the same meta that they're using. Your only option to catch stronger accounts is to use the meta against them. And as a free-to-play player, most of the accounts I come up against are stronger than mine. Yeah, good. Hey, Mr. Trippy. How you doing? Yeah, I'm not. I don't take anything here negatively unless somebody actually comes after me. You shouldn't worry about that. Like, I love these discussions. I love talking shop. Do you know what I mean? This is one of the reasons why I don't like missing Takeover Tuesdays. Having these discussions. So I learn stuff. I learn stuff from viewers all the time. So I might even be disagreeing with you, and then I'll go and think about it tomorrow or 2 days from now, and I'll be like, oh, that's a really good idea. And then I'll do something on my account, and then I'll make a video out of it. You know, so it's like, it helps my account. It's fun for me. It helps the viewers. And then, you know, I'll make a video about it. So gives content. So that's all great. That's all great. Angelica, good to see you. Doctor Who and Christy, all awesome to have you here. Or I should say awesome to have you all here. I cannot talk today. So, yeah, let me give you a little bit of a, sometimes I don't know, what to share about my life. Sometimes I don't know what to share about my life with the viewers and stuff like that. I know that people care. I get enough comments and DMs to know that people genuinely care and they support me when I'm struggling and that kind of thing. I'm not really much of a complainer. I'm also a bit of a private person, but I'm living a public life, you know, so I feel a responsibility towards my community. And I feel, you know, I feel like I have friends and well-wishers and friendly acquaintances in the community, and I want them to know what's going on. My wife and I also have an agreement that some things are off limits. We're trying to maintain a certain level of privacy. But we've had a bad couple of months here. It's been really rough. Since you all know I injured my back, that still has not resolved. Ooh, Christy, thank you. I appreciate that. Did it not pop up? Maybe it's going to pop up in just a second. I don't know. Normally I get a little beep. I'm sorry about that. But Christy, thank you so much. I appreciate the support. So yeah, it's been a rough couple of months. You know, I injured my back. At around the same time, my wife got very sick. My son also got sick. And then I got sick. And we were sick for 2.5 weeks. And then as we were all coming out of that, my wife got sick again. And it was bad. So she's been in the hospital a couple of times over the past month. So as a result, I've been point on the baby. And we have some help. We have family around who are definitely pitching in and helping. But it's really tricky because not only has it massively changed my schedule, it's counterproductive to my back healing. So it's been very tough especially the last week. I haven't made a video in 8 days or something. I literally haven't had a chance to sit down here at the computer. So I'm sharing that for a couple of reasons. One, so like I appreciate people will reach out with sympathetic well wishes and stuff like that, and that's actually really nice. I do like that. It's an unexpected benefit of being in this position that, you know, I've said this before about comments. Sometimes one of the hard things about being a content creator is when you see negative comments, you don't just see one. You know, you might see 10 or 20 or 100 in the span of an hour, you know, and it feels like people are just screaming at you and mad at you and you know, wishing hateful things at you. But the reverse is also true. When you see positive things, you can see dozens or hundreds of positive messages within 24 hours. And so there is that kind of unexpected benefit to being in this position as a content creator. But the reason I'm really communicating that information is because it can be nebulous to a viewer. You have a relationship with the channel and you're like, I don't know why Colred hasn't put a video out in a week. Right? Maybe you're a member of the channel and you're like, I'm trying to support a channel and I don't know what's going on. And I haven't been as communicative in like the Discord recently as I normally am. So I just wanted people to know. Now, the good news is we're doing all the right things. And this is temporary. Like, this is not something that is so scary or, you know, it's not life-changing stuff. We've just hit a rough patch that everybody goes through at some point in their lives, and we just happen to hit it over the last couple of months. And it was kind of like the perfect storm of 4 or 5 negative things all happening simultaneously, any one of which would have been manageable, but altogether it just kind of makes things crazy. So I'm sharing that with you to let you know that that's where I am. That's why I'm not, you know, as visible this past couple of weeks or past couple of months as I've been in the past. But also that, you know, there's an end to it and we're doing okay. We're doing okay. Yeah, I mean, I have my own way of handling negative comments. Depends. There's sort of different categories of negative comments. But anyway, so something that I am excited about is this Friday, I am going to be on the Fateless podcast. Now, I don't think they publish it immediately. I think it comes out maybe on Saturdays, but on Fridays they record. Maybe they release it on Saturdays, or maybe they release it later on Fridays. I don't know, because they're in a lot of different locations. I do know the podcasts that I've watched seem edited, so it's not going to go out live. But I'm going to be on the Fateless podcast this Friday, so the next one that gets released should be me. Thank you, Live Wild. I appreciate that, buddy. So today and for the rest of the week, I'm going to be kind of pushing that a little bit because I'm excited about Fateless. And if you've watched the Fateless podcast, they basically have just people on. Sometimes they're gamers, sometimes they're game developers, they're content creators. They're just people in and around the space. So it's not like they're bringing me on to be an expert on anything. I think they're bringing me on simply because I'm a content creator. I know the genre and I'm interested in the game. And so they're going to let me ask questions. So if you have a question that you would like me to ask Hell Hades and the Fateless crew, let me know. I would say you could put it here in chat, or you can send me a DM in Discord. I have a list of questions. I don't know how many questions I'm going to get through. The podcasts usually last under an hour. But they're like 40 to 50 minutes, I think, typically. I've got a ton of questions of my own, but if you have a question for the Fateless crew, let me know and I will try to ask it. Yeah. Excitement is a hell of a drug. Awesome. That is awesome. So what I wanted to do today before we got to the takeover, I know everybody here is here for a takeover, hopefully, or you're just here to hang out, which is cool too. I want to watch this video. Now let me swap over here. So this is the Fateless video that came out just a few hours ago. So, you know, this is HH. And I kind of want to watch this and see what's going on with it says full beta breakdown. So I've signed up for the beta. I'm assuming a lot of you have signed up for the beta. So this is something that we're going to go ahead and check out here. And then after this is over, we'll talk about it for a little bit. And then we'll do a takeover. So that's sort of what I'm feeling. That's sort of what I'm feeling today. So let's just make sure that everybody can hear it. I'm going to mute my microphone.
Hey guys, this is Simon from Fateless. Today I'm going to be taking you through basically what to expect from the beta when it goes live. I've had tons of people asking me questions around when's it going to happen, what's going to be included, am I included, all these type of things. So you can still sign up to the beta right now. I'll put all the links to that down below. Come to the website at fateless.gg and the sign up form is there. Very easy. And come and join the Discord where we discuss all things Godforge. By the way, if you did not catch it, we had a podcast actually with some of the new members that have joined the team. Literally legends in the industry, like making the games that I used to love to play, like EverQuest, like Star Wars, Galaxies, Turok, like crazy, awesome games, okay? And the podcast was actually lots of fun. I really enjoyed it myself, just listening to some of their stories and really why they joined Fateless. We've also got another sneak peek video that's going to come this week, towards the end of the week, which I'm really excited to share with you as well. I can't wait until you see it because I think it's going to blow your brains out. But today, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about the beta, what to expect. We're still on basically demo 2.0 right now with some tweaks, with some new additions. But in essence, what we built for demo 2.0.
Just want to make sure everybody can hear that. You're getting that audio, right? Are you getting that full audio? I don't think Godforge is going to be a raid killer. I don't think of games like that. Games don't die because other games become popular. But you know, the long-term impact may be significant. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Let me go back.
Which we basically built it for investors to have a kind of feeling of, you know, what will Godforge be? Yeah, in its very dumbed down version, all of this white boxed and, you know, none of it final assets. But ultimately, what type of game are they going to be looking at here? Because they might not know this genre that well. And what type of mechanics are we adding into the game? That's what Demo 2.0 was really all about. So really what we're going to do is we're going to be using Demo 2.0 as kind of our base for what we want players to be able to experience for the beta. And the beta we're looking to go live with, at least a version of the beta. You know, there's 20,000 odd people that signed up right now. The way we see it is we'll have kind of like blocks of people coming in and playtesting certain things. So it might be like, you know, 500 people, you get to come in for a 3-day period and smash the early game. Just absolutely smash the early game. Find out if that's enjoyable for you. We might have another group of players where it's like, we're giving you accounts that are relatively maxed out. How do you feel when you've got a load of heroes maxed, you know, fighting more difficult content? Is that an enjoyable experience? So ultimately.
So that's kind of cool. So different people are going to have different beta experiences, right? I like the idea of potentially seeing the mid game and the end game in the beta. Knowing what does end game look like? That's always a question for every game, because you can enjoy the journey through a game and then get to the end game and feel very disappointed that your journey's over and the end game doesn't offer you anything. And those games are still worth playing, by the way. At least for me, I enjoy the journey up to end game, but I really do stick around in games that have a great end game. Raid's a little bit weird in that there isn't really end game. There's just game, right? There's stuff that's more end game content focused, but you start taking it on in the mid game, you know, and it's just a question of like, how high do you want to go with it? Like when you start one king Nightmare Hydra, does that mean it's over? Or do you go for bigger damage? Do you go for Hydra Clash, you know? And a lot of games end up with PvP as the end game. That's just sort of the thing that continues to push players to compete with the game is other players. And I don't love that. I don't mind some of it. I like some of it. I think PvP should be part of endgame. but I don't like games that rely fully on a PvP endgame. I think you need to have a great PvE endgame to really keep your player base happy and engaged. And then PvP should be mixed in there because there are a lot of people who really enjoy both, and there are people who focus on one or the other. So if one of them lags behind, you're going to disappoint somebody. But so it'll be good that, in the beta, you get to see the early game, you get to see the mid game, you get to see the end game. I don't know if they're going to have an NDA for players. I don't know if the beta is going to be closed or open. I forget already. He may have said, but I'm a little wonky right now. So, you may be hearing from your content creators who are in the beta about the early game. You may be hearing about them, through them about the mid game and the end game. So it'd be good that the information gets disseminated. They're pretty transparent with their game, but there will be some point where they're going to want to hold some things in. They don't want to reveal everything about the game before you play it, because some people will be like, oh, whatever, I know everything about it, I don't need to play it. So they will want to keep some secrets. So it'll be interesting to see what they actually let us release through the beta. When I say we, I'm just hoping I get in. I haven't heard yet. I have applied for the beta. And yeah, you should consider it too. All right, here we go.
What we're going to have in our beta is a number of different elements of the game fleshed out. Probably something like 100 heroes in the game, animated with full VFX, properly loaded in.
That's pretty cool to hear. If they have 100 heroes in the beta, that means they're going to launch with more than that. I was wondering how big the roster would be. I have played games of this type that have launched with 25 champions, and they can work that way. They do not have to have a massive roster to be very good games, as long as you're introducing new champions on a regular basis. But some games feel like they need to have a big roster. I certainly think if you're trying to pull the raid community, going from a game that has 800 plus champions to one that has 25 might feel bad for some players. So it feels like, based on this number, they're going for a relatively robust roster of champions early on. But we do want to remember that probably includes like commons and uncommons and rares, some champions that won't be particularly valuable in the long run. Yeah, so I don't, that's nice. That's nice. Again, like I said, it's not necessary, but it's cool to hear.
The ability to go in and check them out in your hero viewer. There'll be summoning to collect those heroes, so you get that kind of whole summoning experience, the gotcha element experience, and you're going to be able to come in and do anything related to upgrading a hero. So that will be things like just a general level upgrade. It will be elements like skill upgrading, putting gear on your heroes, doing awakenings, doing ascension, masteries, pretty much anything to do with a hero and the ability to upgrade them will be in the beta.
Thanks. Thanks. So I was talking about the graphics. I put up a poll. I'm just curious about how you feel about the graphics for Godforge and if it matters to you. Some people don't care that much about graphics. I do care about graphics, but I don't care about graphical styles as much. Like, I don't care if it's anime or it's realistic. I don't care if it's 2D or it's 3D. I don't care if it's an impressionist style. Like, I like art styles to be done well, but I don't care which style games choose normally. Like, you could use like a Mario Brothers kind of, you know, console cartoony style. As long as the game is good and the graphics are done consistently and done well, meaning they don't break and they're, you know, they're consistent from champion to champion and world to world, then I think it's cool. So, and yeah, Ken, I did say that before while I was muted. The graphics on Godforge aren't finished yet, but they are in an advanced state, right? So you can get a pretty good idea of the art style at this point, although I'm sure textures and shadows and stuff like that will change before launch. So whatever we're seeing now is not the max value of Godforge art. You know, that's not. And just quickly so far, people are saying they are comparable at 51%. 30% people say I like Raid graphics better. Now, that's not surprising to me because we play Raid. We play Raid, so obviously we like Raid graphics, and Raid graphics are finished, and we're also attached to our champions and all that stuff. I think if you had to press me on it right now, I like Raid graphics better as well, but I would say the margin is relatively small, and that difference may be overcome once Godforge goes into its final, like, finished product. Because I do think the graphics will get better once the shaders are put in and once all the textures are finalized and stuff like that. So yeah, it does feel like most people think either they're comparable or Raid is better. But there are a few people who like the Godforge graphics better. And I hope that, you know, if you still like Raid graphics better, if Godforge is a better game, the graphics won't matter. You know? Yeah, sorry about it. That happens. That happens. My brain is, it is where it is. All right, let's go ahead and keep watching. Sorry. I'm going to mute myself again. I'll try to remember to unmute myself later. I've done it like 5 times, and I've unmuted myself successfully most of the times, but every once in a while. Yeah.
Okay. Did I say when it was? Like, basically, we're looking at, I don't know if I said or not, Q1 next year is the plan. Later on in Q1, though, probably around March, when we're going to start to have waves of people coming in and testing different things. And it might be that we have a number of waves live at the same time, but just testing different things. Okay, so that's the kind of the initial group that we're planning. So yeah, anything to do with a hero, any sort of upgrading is going to be part of the plan. And really what we're looking for is how do people find the game? Like, is the gameplay enjoyable? We will have a full kind of like normal campaign. So a lot of you would have seen the Aru level by now that we've just got in the demo. Ultimately, I say a full campaign. Basically, in the full release, we're going to have 10 factions of different mythologies. We might have a reduced number of factions available in the beta, just because of the type of heroes that we're kind of maxing out right now in terms of showcasing and stuff. But ultimately, there'll be now, like, this is totally white box, by the way. This is obviously not finished for anyone who cannot see with their own eyes. But, you know, if I compare it to the Aru map, again, not finished, but more finished than the Khajiit one. But I just wanted to show you some stuff is kind of going into engine, but it's going into engine and it's not being polished and all that type of stuff. We're literally just getting it in there so that people can play the game. So, you know, we can go into, for example, a Khajiit level now and play the level. But it's the enemies are not kind of like fixed and that type of stuff. For beta, all of that will be in. The proper enemies to fight, you know, this kind of like sense of progression. So, you know, I could come in here and do like an Aphrodite ult, for example. All of this is working because certain heroes are like actually added into the game. But for the beta, there'll be a lot more that are kind of properly tuned in. There's a bunch of buggy stuff here right now that we need to iron out. We've not been focused on this side of it for a little while, honestly, because it's just kind of like we've got other stuff to do. but the stuff that was already working is still working. And we're basically focused a lot more on bringing new maps into the fray. Working on some of the camera work, some of the shaders, all that type of stuff. But some of the heroes are now starting to get kind of like fleshed out in the background, not here with what you're seeing today. So for beta, that will be in though. The campaign will be done. We're going to have, we think, maybe 6 to 10 dungeons. With anything which will be related to developing your heroes and upgrading them and finding like items for them, that type of stuff. All of that will be in. So
I'm muted. So 6 to 10 dungeons is interesting because if you think about like when Raid launched, what did they have, right? They had the potion keeps, they had Minotaur, and then they had the 4 classic dungeons. I think that's what they had. So they launched with 9 dungeons if you count the potion keeps. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. There are 5 potion keeps. So technically 10 dungeons. I forget about the arcane keep. So, something around there, right? Which would give you 3 different ways to progress your champions. We had the potions for ascensions. You have the Minotaur for masteries. You have the 4 classic dungeons for gear. Now, they may not do the same distribution. It may be very, very different. It could be very different. It could be fairly close. But it feels like they haven't strayed too far from the typical gacha formula in terms of how you empower your champion. You've got levels, you've got star levels, whatever you want to call them in your game. You've got rarities, you've got, all, the gear, all, whatever it happens to be. There's like 5 or 6 different pathways to empower your champion, which is pretty typical. And that's cool. Like, I like that as long as there's some customization options. But one of the things that I find interesting is their choice to go to what they're calling a, what are they calling it? A cinematography combat. Like this sort of focus on one champion over the shoulder, as opposed to the bird's eye view that we get in Raid and other games where you're kind of looking at the entire team simultaneously. Like in this particular shot, this champion is on a team. You can see there are 4 champions here, but you're only seeing her. Is this Aphrodite? Is that what he said? It's like, you're only seeing her. You're seeing kind of from her perspective. Like, you do get to see your champion because you want to see the animations, right? Like, that's important. You have to see the animations of the champion, and you still are, but without the distraction of your teammates, right? Without the like far away camera view that you get in Raid. This is a much closer, more kind of in your face view. And I have not seen this in this genre before. I've certainly seen it in other RPG style games, MMO games, even like action RPGs. Sometimes you have the option to like do both, right? You'll be on a zoom scroll, and you can scroll out to sort of a more third person view, like bird's eye view. And then you can scroll in even to like a first person perspective, or sometimes just an over the shoulder. So this is kind of interesting for this genre. It definitely makes it feel different. There is a different feel to this. I don't know how I feel about it in terms of like, is it better or worse? Because I haven't seen enough, right? Like, I haven't seen enough. If it slows down the fight significantly, or if it's visually bouncing around when you do auto battles, I think it has the potential to backfire, right? It has to be streamlined. It has to be quick. It has to be visually steady, because people literally get nauseous playing games that bounce around their camera too much. Like, that's a thing. I'm not one of those people, but my wife is. Like, I try to play games with her sometimes, and she's like, oh, I can't play this game. I'm like, why, you don't like it? She's like, I don't even know if I like it because the camera's bouncing around too much and it's making me nauseous. So this is kind of an interesting choice. And I think it's going to be a more impactful choice than perhaps just a camera angle should be, right? Like, if the game is good, who cares kind of how it looks? Like, we were talking about the graphics. But simultaneously, it's like, there are people who are going to love this, There are people who are going to hate this, and then there's going to be like a minority who doesn't care either way. I think people are either going to love or hate this. I think that's the reality. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I'm thinking. So I'm going to put that poll up as well. Let's go ahead and swap polls here. So the previous poll says, what does it say currently? So the numbers come down a little bit. 40% are saying they're comparable. Almost 40% are saying the raid graphics are better. This is my game here in the background. And then I don't care about graphics, 16%, and I like Godforge graphics better. Only 5% are saying they like the Godforge graphics better. That number will change as we move forward, right? As we get to a finished Godforge product, I think that 5% will go up. The question is, will that percentage of people who like Godforge graphics better like come from the comparable group, or from the I like raid graphics better? Like, will there be converts, or will people who just think they're comparable now say, actually, I'm leaning towards Godforge? I think they will probably end up being fairly comparable, slightly different. Like if we look at the champion like graphics here, I mean, the camera distance matters, the backgrounds matter, the shadows and textures matter, and we don't have that stuff yet in Godforge. We don't have it yet. So it's hard to say that they're comparable. Like it feels like, well, Raid has to be better, right? Because it's finished and it's very good. So the people who are saying, I like Godforge graphics better, I'm assuming that you like the style better, not that you think it's finished yet, right? And that you're just anticipating that when it is finished, you will like it more because you like that style a little bit more. I think this is a fairly gritty style. There's definitely some shine to things, but there's a lot of darkness in Raid. And there's a lot of kind of, I don't know if you'd call them even dirty, but there's like real, like this is not, when you look here at these textures, right? Like his skin tone, like the color of his skin and sort of the pebbled texture of being a lizardman, having scales or looking like you have scales, the dark in the armor, like the claws, like you can even see the claws being kind of dingy, and it's like that is not by accident, right? Like that is a very conscious choice, and a lot of games don't do that. And you almost can't in like anime style art, right? Like you have to go with a more realistic style, and they're using different engines. And so, to some, like they're using different paintbrushes. Do you know what I mean? So like to get the same feel could be tricky. I think they're using different. I think this is Unreal and they're using Unity. I think. And that's true, Darren. Like if you look at like, if you go to like some, champions, from the early game, like the modeling here, like on the face and the head is really simple. You know what I mean? Like the scale work is not as good here. There are still some nice textures to it. There are definitely there are touches even on these champions, but when you go to like, even here, like I like how much work they put into some common champions, but then other champions, you look at them and like, you're like, come on, really? I mean, there are epics that are awful. Exemplar is like one of those that always stands out, like she's just really bad. They reuse the character models a lot. And then over time they got better and better, so when you look at new champions that have come into the game, like let's go look at the Asgard champions. Like the artwork here is so far superior, not just the textures, but like the base character shape, the form, the skin, like the actual painting, the colors that they use, the little textures and extra flourishes and stuff is so much better. Like just this little bit of cloak that's sticking out, like here it's a bird's wing and here it's kind of this, I don't know what you would call that, like runic writing almost, right? And sort of the textures there. I think this is such like, I mean, look at the little animal hanging off of her belt, you know, the rope braids in the gold belt, the cool like effect on her shield. This is a really cool character design. Or, you know, look at somebody like Thor. You know, I like this. This is relatively, when you think about it, like simplicity here is like, it doesn't have to be complicated to be effective. This is sort of a simpler idea, right? There's still a lot of flourishes. I like the head on the back. You know, it's like there's cool little scroll work on the bottom of the cloak, like, but it looks more realistic. Like this face looks like it could belong to somebody, you know, historically. And like the shine is secondary, right? The realism and the grit and the like the weight of it is coming through first. And I don't know that Godforge is doing that. They seem to be going more towards the shiny computerized graphics, a little bit less realism. And that's okay because they're talking about gods, right? Like they're talking about gods. That's fine. And that's a choice. But I do think like once the shading comes in and the textures come in, you're probably going to get a similar level of detail. It'll just be a little bit less grim, a little bit less dark, maybe a little bit less gritty and worn out. And that's going to be cool. Ryo is a gorgeous design. I agree. It was one of the coolest looking champions in the whole game. Absolutely. Super cool looking champion. So she could fit in Godforge. You wouldn't even have to change anything. She could fit in Godforge, right? Like, look at her. She's phenomenal. I don't know what god she would be, but yeah, I love this character model. Okay, so let's go ahead and end that poll now. But I wanted to do the other poll. I'm going to add one more poll here. Don't worry, we'll get to a takeover. So I wanted to add another poll. And what was that poll going to be talking about? Oh, the cinematic. They're calling it not cinematography. They're calling it cinematic. How do you feel about Godforge's cinematic combat, like, viewpoint? All right, here we go. All right, here we go. Sorry about that. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to type than I mean it to. Okay, so let's finish off this video.
Yeah, rest assured, we're going to bring gameplay that you can actually test. But there's, as I say, there's a bunch of buggy stuff going on still in here. And because I've not used this ability yet before, I'm showing you. It's done a blue box it. That's actually kind of cool. Ramsey's giving the big shouts. That's actually kind of sweet. Anyway, yeah, there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff that needs to be resolved before we're able to properly show that off. So yeah, what else we got here? We'll have that kind of like new player experience. So a full kind of like railroad of a new player. We're going to work on things like camera positions and that type of stuff. Summoning flow. So in the beta 2.0, we've got this kind of very old school, not old school, very kind of like white box feel of a summon. This is clearly not our final summoning animation, but we will have that in for the game because it's an important part of a hero collector, a gotcha game. And yeah, and basically, yeah, anything which is related to collecting heroes and upgrading heroes, we will have available for you to use. So yeah, so interestingly, like that's basically what we're working on right now. All of the elements which make the game a playable game, missions, quests, you know, all of the mastery systems, player.
That's a podcast I'm going to be on. Apparently it's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I didn't realize it was all over the place because I watch it on YouTube. But I would love for this podcast with me, my episode of the podcast, to blow up. So I'm going to try to promote it over the next couple of days, just so you're aware of it. It is happening on Friday. At least the recording is. And like I said, I think the recording either goes out later on Friday or on Saturday, depending on where you are in the world. But it should be coming out this week. I'm very excited because I know that, or at least Simon is scheduled to be on the podcast. There's going to be Sham, Chosen, and Susie. I think those are the 4 people who are scheduled to be on it with me. So I'm going to be the primary like guest asking questions, but I'm going to have all 4 of them there to answer those questions. And I have worked with HH before. I just call him Simon. I think of him as HH or Hades. But yeah, I've done some collabs with him in the past, and I've enjoyed talking to him off camera. He's a really sharp guy. He's really smart. He's interesting. He's clearly passionate about games, and I haven't had a chance yet to talk to him about Godforge. I've only talked to him about Raid, and the passion he brings to like Raid that's somebody else's game. So the amount of passion that he's going to bring to Godforge, I imagine, as his project, he's the face of this project. I just want to get in a room with him and talk to him about it because I think that would be fun for me and hopefully informative for you. So definitely check out the Fateless podcast coming up. I will try to let you guys know when it goes live. I will link it in my Discord. So if you're not a member of the Discord, become a member of the Discord so that you can get that notification. But also consider subscribing to the Fateless YouTube channel because it will go up there as well. And that is the channel that we're currently watching. All right, so let's go ahead and finish.
Journals, indexes, all of that type of stuff is all in and milestone right now. It's quite a big milestone actually, which runs right the way through to February. And what we do is we break that into 2-week chunks, if you like. So we're able to basically sort of use those 2-week chunks to say, right, this 2 weeks we're going to finish designing this group of heroes. We're going to design this environment piece. We're going to fix the camera. Okay, next 2 weeks, what we're going to do? We're going to implement these 5 heroes actually into the game engine. I don't know, we're going to finish these 10 in 3D. But there's so many things that are packed into what we're doing here, what we're building here is enough to blow your brains, honestly. There's so much that goes into building this style of game. But all in all, it's all building towards this kind of like beta release. And then, obviously, once we start getting some of the feedback from that, while still developing, we'll be taking that feedback on board to try and tweak and enhance the final full release in sort of Q3 next year. So lots going on, tons of work that's been done right now, but I just wanted to sort of drop this so that you had a better feel for what we're actually trying to release for people to actually play test and enjoy when we get that beta out. Let me know what you think, and as I say, don't forget to sign up to the beta down below, and yeah, I will see you in the next one.
Okay, so just a couple of notes there. He said Q1 and Q3. That's just business speak for first quarter of the year, third quarter of the year. Your fiscal quarters can be different than your yearly calendar, but it seems like they're trying to match up to their yearly calendar. I think that's typical in games. When you say Q1, Q2, you mean the seasons of the year, So Q1 is January through March. Q3 would be July through September, I guess. So those are the dates that they're expecting. Those are their initial dates that we're going to get the beta probably in March. And then they're going to launch, I would assume, towards the end of Q3. So I would assume end of summer next year, 2025 is when we'll actually get the game. That's not a very long development window, actually. Like, they will have done this in roughly 2.25 years or something like that, which is pretty fast for a game that has the ambition, I think, that Godforge has. So if you're interested in the game, I highly recommend supporting these guys, if for no other reason than they're members of our community who are trying to do something that is very difficult to do, right? They're trying to launch a indie gaming company and deliver games that they would like to play. And we and we're the same people. You know what I mean? They are us. So that's why I'm supporting it. I'm definitely high on the project. I'm hoping that they succeed, that they deliver an excellent gaming experience, that the game is financially successful, and they can go on to develop more games in the future. That's my hope. But who knows? Who knows? So there is a Fateless Discord, the Fateless YouTube channel. Let me just show you that right now because I'm on it. So yeah, you're Fateless. You can see. So it's literally just Fateless. You can just search it on YouTube and you'll find it. And you can subscribe there. All right. Anybody want to do a takeover? Anybody up for takeover? All right. Back on my account here. Let's go ahead and do some takeovers today. I don't know that I'm going to get to 2. UK Q1 would be April through June. Okay. I don't know if that's true for everybody everywhere. Like, that's like fiscal quarters is different than calendar quarters. Like, everywhere calendar quarter is, based on the new year, January through March, right? But then fiscal quarters are different. And like your government quarters, like their fiscal calendar is also different. So it may be that the UK government is like Q1 is April through June, and that's how you do your taxes or whatever. But I think as the gaming standard, everybody just adheres to the calendar year. Yeah. Christy, congrats. Finished Doom Tower normal first time. Awesome. That is very cool. Mr. Trey, okay, so let me explain how this works. If you've never been here before for a takeover, basically what happens is you need to join my Discord community. You have to do it. That's just the way we do it. So there's a link in the description of this video for my Discord. You can get in instantly. There's no delay or anything. In the Discord, you want to go ahead and scroll down until you see an area called the Coaching Corner. It's about halfway down, I guess. I don't know how you see the Discord because I see all extra stuff. So in the Coaching Corner, there is a channel called the Wheel of Takeover. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to reset all of the reactions. So you go into that channel called the Wheel of Takeover, and there is a message that says, react to this message for your choice to win a free takeover. Just go ahead and react to that message right now. You will be entered into the wheel, and we're going to spin the wheel, and the wheel will pick the winner. Now, you can react as many times as you like, but you will only be entered into the wheel once, so you can't bypass it by reacting 500 times. You just get basically one entry. Now, here's the thing. You can win one takeover for free every 90 days. So if you have won in the last 90 days, please don't put your name in the wheel. Just don't do it. And if you're unsure, if you won one a while ago and you're not sure how long ago it was, just look in the DMs that you have with me, look at our DMs together, and it'll show you the date in the DMs in Discord, and that'll tell you when you had your last takeover. Now, if you win, you should be ready for that. I want you to go ahead. I'm gonna DM you, congratulate you for winning. I want you to reply with your login information. So you need your email address and your password. If you're not 100% sure on those, check it out right now. Find out what email and password you're using. If you don't have two-factor authentication turned on, don't turn it on now because it will lock you out. But if you do have it on, then I'll just ask for the code when the time is appropriate. I'm also going to give you a new Discord role so you can join me in the voice channel where I am hanging out. I'm going to be in a place called the Coaching Voice. I'm going to pull you in there, you can join me in there. Rather, I'm not going to pull you in there. You have to join. You can join me in there. You will be muted. You won't be able to speak to me, but you will be able to hear me in real time because there's a delay on the live stream. It's only 10 or 15 seconds. It's not a big delay, but it's enough to kind of slow things down. So join me in the channel, and then you can just DM me what kind of account takeover you would like, what you are looking for, in terms of help. I have decided, I did this last week, that I am putting gear cleanses back into rotation. Like if you need a gear cleanse, if you want a gear cleanse, that's fine. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do like an overview of a gear cleanse, and I'm not going more than 30 minutes. So I'm not going to clean out your account for you, right? I basically will teach everybody how to do a gear cleanse, or how I do a gear cleanse using your account. And maybe we'll do like 10 or 15% of a gear cleanse, and then that'll be it. So if you were hoping to win like a massive gear cleanse that's going to go on for 2 hours and I'm going to clear out your whole, like that will never ever happen, because it's just really bad content. Like people get bored and leave the live stream when I do gear cleanses. So, we'll do like a 20 to 30 minute gear cleanse, but everything else is on. If you want clan boss, if you want Hydra, if you want arena, if you want champion rebuilds, who should 6-star next. If you are just interested in having like a celebration of your account, like you just want to show off and say, hey, this is an account showcase, that's totally fine. I don't mind doing those for people. But if you're more like, no, I'd rather give that to, that takeover to somebody who could use it and actually be improved by it, then that's what I'm hoping to do today. So I would rather not do a showcase today, because I'm probably only going to do one takeover. It's been 83 years since your last takeover, Alex. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. Hey, no, man. I appreciate the well wishes. I'm not quite there yet, but I do appreciate the support. It's always great to hear. I kind of earlier in the live stream, I gave an update about how things are going for us right now, and we're in a little bit of a rough patch, but we'll get through it. And I do appreciate the support. Daniel Deep just joined. Bald is bootyful this week, and we're crushing Siege. Loving the Coal Red cluster so far. Great community. That's awesome. I'm so glad to have you, Daniel. My buddy Q runs that clan. Bald is beautiful. And so he was like in a pirate themed clan, and he didn't want to lose that theme entirely when they came over. So they just decided to kind of combine the pirate theme and the Coal Red theme, and we like to have fun clan names, and so it's great. Calling it now, I ain't gonna win. Hey, Kropcho, greetings from Poland. Well, greetings to you from New England as well. My buddy Krop is an excellent content creator, free-to-play player, very good player. You should go and check out his content if you haven't already. Good to see you, Krop. Okay. So I think that's enough. If anybody has any questions, you can certainly ask in chat, and probably other people will fill you in. But we've got a ton of reactions, so I'm going to go ahead and spin the wheel in just about 30 seconds here. Whoops. I got to do maybe 45 seconds. I have to do a thing. Here we go. All right, here we go. We're going to do it now. Good luck to all our participants. Phantom Shogun would be good, yeah. People are giving a thumbs up on the wheel while it's thinking. They're like, yeah, maybe I could pick me, pick me, pick me, pick me, please. Wow, we got a lot of reactions today, so we got a lot of thinking to do. We've got a winner. Oof. Okay, so interesting. Wait a second. Hoax 819. Oh, you literally, I was like, I'm looking at this. I'm like, I have your email and password, but you were so fast. You were so ready that you just sent it instantly. We have had conversations in the past, Hoax. But okay, so it was a while ago that you won. You did win one way back in November of last year. Is that right? Yeah, it looks like you won back in November. All right, cool. Oh, you won again in May. Okay. So great. Awesome. Let's take a look. Let me break this down. And we'll get your account logged in here. And let me make sure I give you your, you may already have your role. Okay, so you can go ahead and join me in the coaching voice. There he is. Let me turn the streamer mode back on. Okay. And then let me get you logged. So Hoax has been with us for a long time. It's always great to see. Always great to see. All right, so Arena looks fine at the moment, but you can check if you are able to improve it. Sure. Dungeons need some assistance pushing up all dungeons to speed farm. Okay. Clan boss, not enough damage to one key Nightmare at times and use too much keys on Ultimate Nightmare. Hydra advised needed to clear normal. Champions, whom to 6-star next, who will add more value. Okay. So we got a whole bunch of stuff. All right, so this is we always do a little bit of an account overview really quickly. So come in here. Let me I'm going to do this right away because I forget to do this sometimes. And it makes things a little bit easier if I do this. So when we get to champions builds and stuff, like you can see the stats. Okay, so account level 93. You're past all of the champions. So this is 2+ years in, 2.5 years in. So quite a long way in. Let's go ahead and look at 6-star champions. 51 6-star champions. You got some good ones here. I mean, you got Kymar and Dracomorph. I don't know how good Solus is. I have heard some things that Solus is very good. He's one of the hardest hitting defensive based damage dealers in the game, I think. But I've never actually ever pulled him on any account. You've got a Ninja and a Trunda. You have a Lenathril, which I love. You got a UDK. You do have Artak. Okay. You got 2 Trundas built. Okay. You got your Thor, your Wukong. You got a Helicath who is just so good. He is so good. All right. All right, so were you asking about normal Hydra? Device needed to clear normal. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at Arena because you mentioned Arena. You're in Gold 5. Let's just take a look at your team. Yeah, that's good. That's good. You got a lockout team, right? So you go Arbiter is your go first into a fast Kymar who CCs everybody, and then you've got 2 nukers to just destroy them. I would suggest potentially, and maybe you do this already. Let's see. But I would suggest working Wukong into this because that gives you the buff strip option. You have Kymar as a buff strip option, right? But if he buff strips, well, let me double check this because it's been a long time since I've actually had a Kymar. I've had Kymar on other accounts, but I don't have him on my main account. Okay, so the buff strip and the sleep are the same. Okay, so then it doesn't matter. Then Wukong doesn't matter as much. But I was going to say, potentially Wukong gives you like damage when he buff strips. So plus the block debuffs buff. But yeah, I think I'm fine. It feels like you're fine in Arena. I don't think that should be any kind of problem. Let's go ahead and look at your clan boss team. So you say you're not one keying Nightmare every time. Oh, I didn't see the account name. That's always a... Okay, so it's Hoax819. Great. That's easy enough. So you said you're not one keying Nightmare every time. So here you've got 86 million. But somehow this doesn't one key Nightmare every time? This is kind of an interesting theme. Sometimes it hits just over, 35 million. Okay, so I mean, yeah, Bront, another content creator in the chat here, Bront Cat Herder Gaming. He is a Twitch TV streamer, but also has kind of started putting a lot of effort into his YouTube channel. You should check out Bront's channel as well. Got some cool content there. Very helpful. So yeah, Bront is saying, this could struggle into Force Affinity, right? Because your damage dealer, I mean, Ninja obviously is your primary damage dealer. Your second hardest hitting champion is going to be Brogni, and both of those are magic affinity, so could struggle into Force Affinity. The other thing that could happen potentially is Spirit Affinity could like break what amounts to a speed tune. So I just want to take a look at, we don't have any keys. Oh, that's unfortunate. Let's go. Okay, so it should be here somewhere. This is it right here, right? Team 9. Okay, so are you opening with the shield? So 262. So Helicath is faster. Helicath is your fastest champion. He's opening with your block damage ability, but then Brogni is opening with the shield increase. Now, this is also a buff strip, but he's going faster than the clan boss. So the clan boss doesn't put up his increased attack buff until after his first turn. So this feels like a mistake to run this ability here. It's not extending Helicath's shield because Brogni's doing this too soon. You should probably, you can't open with this. You should probably open with the A1. Get an HP burn out there. I mean, you have the accuracy to land it. It's not going to hurt Ninja at all. So probably there. I mean, the other option here is, right, you have a you're increasing the duration of ally buffs here. Does Tagore also have that? I don't think he does. Okay. So what it feels like, and this is a reasonable way to do this. Helicath gives you a block damage buff for 2 turns. And if you place that at the right point and you have the right speeds, that will block AoE 1 and AoE 2. You can then use Helicath's shield, this shield, or Brogni's shield. This plays as a shield, right? In order to survive the stun. You're going to need a cleanser or 2 or a block debuffs or 2, depending on how you do it, to counteract the slow from Spirit Affinity and to counteract the stun, right? So here you have Okay, so here you have heals and an increased speed. That might get you to a 2-to-1. I don't know if the speeds, like off the top of my head, they look like they might be 2-to-1 speeds. Is this a speed tuned team? No, it's not a 2-to-1 speed tune. It's just a fast team. Okay. You're probably close. I mean, I think the reason that this wouldn't reach a 2-to-1 is simply because it's not tuned. Like, I think you're fast enough on all of these champions to potentially get to a 2-to-1. You might have to alter a few speeds, you know, but like there's a, so I actually, let me take that back. There's a couple of ways to reach 2-to-1. One way is to bring 2 increased speed champions. You have 2 different increased speed champions. Another way is to bring 1 increased speed champion and buff extend that increased speed so it never drops off of anybody. And then if you have the right speeds, you can get to a 2-to-1 speed. So this would be possible, and you wouldn't have to turn off this skill because you still have heals on this skill, so that could be keeping you alive. You know, like that could be healing up whoever's potentially taking the stun damage. So Sandlash Survivor is basically here to extend the duration of ally buffs. You're extending that shield. You would extend the increased speed. But she's the only buff extender. And that's not enough. That's not enough to keep it up all of the time. You would need at least 2 buff extenders with cooldown reduction to make that work. Typically, you run 3 buff extenders. But for a 2-to-1, you might be able to get away with it depending on like where in the cycle the buff extenders are. You could potentially use like just an increased speed, maybe with a, no, you might be able to use an increased speed with a single buff extender. Let me just see. I think there is that combo on Deadwood Jedi. Let's go ahead and check it out. All right, here at Deadwood Jedi. Actually, you know what? I altered that for a video. Let me go over here instead. I apologize to those of you watching on your phones. But so here, I do believe if you go to speed tunes, if you go to a 2-to-1 ratio, I think it's the white. Is it just the white whale? I'm not sure if it's white whale Lydia. This is using Lydia and a buff extender. So let's go down here. Oops. I think that's right. I gotta check it. Not really a problem. Okay. So the way that this speed tune works, if you're not familiar with it, this is a 2-to-1 speed tune. They were called the white whale. They were called the white whale because back in the day, nobody was sure that they could even get a 2-to-1 speed tune going, and then they finally discovered how to do it, and so it was like the white whale, you know, like the Moby Dick. So basically what you've got here is you've got 1 increased speed champion, that's Lydia, and then you've got 1 buff extender, that's Godseeker and Neri. That's the setup that you currently have with Takeover and Sandlash Survivor. So you would have to have your speed buff launched first. It would have to go first. And then it would have to be extended. It looks like it gets extended right away. And as a result, you can see it kind of lasts all the way through. And then eventually what happens is Like you can see the first 3 rounds are not 2-1. This is not 2-1. And then you're almost 2-1 here. And then you're in 2-1. And so the speed buff does drop off at times. You can see it actually, maybe you can see it with my cursor if I turn my cursor on. So you can see it does drop off at times in certain places on certain champions, but it accelerates everybody to the speed they need to get to a 2-1. So you could go for this, and this would probably do very well for you with the team that you have. Now, there's a problem with the team that you have in terms of this composition. That is Ninja. I don't know if you can get a 2-1 like this with Ninja, because remember, Ninja gets 15% turn meter every time he uses his A1. So when we come here, like this skill, Shatterbolt, also fills this champion's turn meter by 15% when used against bosses. So he's getting turn meter fill against the clan boss. So trying to use this speed tune may be problematic. But what I would say is, you know, either you can bring in an additional buff extender potentially and solve that problem, or you can remove the buff extender and just go fast and not tune it. Like there may be some things that you could do, because this champion, Sandlash Survivor, is only useful really for this ability. That's the only thing she's good for, right? She doesn't, like, her provoke doesn't work, doesn't do anything against the clan boss. And the ally protection only happens when any ally's HP drops below 50%. And like, that's good for like a turn or 2 at the end of your run. That might get you an extra 1 rotation. Maybe it'll get you 1 extra rotation, maybe 2. If you're lucky, and maybe it gives you nothing. So I think you would be better off bringing in a different champion here to either do more damage in the same number of turns, or to give you more defenses, because you have a fairly heavy defensive team here. So if you wanted to bring in a real ally protector, bring in an ally protector. If you wanted to bring in another, you know, increased defense, strengthened champion to give you more survivability when Helikath's shield is down, do that. If you'd rather go the Helikath unkillable route, bring in somebody who gives Helikath cooldown reduction. You can bring a renegade in here, and you can become unkillable that way. And then again, what happens is basically Helikath. So if we go back to the calculator, what would happen here? Let's see. I might even be able to find this. Let's go here and we'll go for Helikath. I don't know if this one exists here, but this is the one that I ran for a long time. I think it's this one. I think it's a version of Batman Forever. Now this isn't actually using Helikath, so this is a different tune than the one that I ran. But okay, so what happens here is if you look at the rotation, you can see Roshguard is playing the role of Helikath. Let's put in Helikath. We can just... Yeah, okay, so Helikath here is in yellow. So what Helikath does is he puts up his block damage here. I'm not exactly sure who would be the renegade. But so he puts up his block damage here. That's actually, is it his A3? It's his A3, isn't it? This is A3. So where does he put up his A3? Let's find his A3. We would probably have to change. We do this. Okay, here it is. So right here on turn 3, you can see it. All right, so he puts up his A3. That's it. And Warcaster doesn't exist. Warcaster is somebody else. We'll make that renegade. And we'll turn off all her skills for now. Okay. Nah, I'm finally ready. All right, so Helicath puts up the A3. That gives you a block damage buff. And that covers the AoE 1. Now, what would happen in column 2 is Renegade here would use her cooldown reduction. And because you're going at a 2-to-1, that means Helicath's 4-turn cooldown turns into a 2-turn cooldown. And he goes twice. So here in column 2, he would use his block damage buff again. So you have one here to block the AoE 1. You have another one to block the AoE 2. Now, the important thing here is that Renegade is on a 6-turn cycle. You can see she's at a 2-to-1. So if your Renegade has a 6-turn cooldown on her cooldown reduction ability, which is her A3, I think. So you don't want to fully book it. If you fully book it, it goes down to 5 turns, and that becomes problematic. But if you leave it as 6-turn cooldown, it will always fire in this place, and you will always get Helicath's cooldown to the right place, and you get block damage buff, block damage buff. That covers both AoEs. And then what happens is over here in column 3, Helicath puts up his shield. And his shield is big enough, if you haven't built right, to prevent any stun target from dying for 50 turns. Because that stun target's only taking 1 hit, and nobody is taking damage from any other hits, that stun target will always be healed to full and have a massive shield when they get hit with the stun. And so you're going unkillable without really being unkillable, right? Like you only have the block damage buff on 2 of the 3 turns. And you are almost there to this team, right? You are close to this team. All you would have to do is take out Survivor, right? And put in your Renegade. But I think that this team is built with a Seeker. Yeah, it's built with a Seeker instead of a Tagore. So I don't know. I'm assuming you could get to the maybe. I mean, I think you would need that buff extender now, right? So you might have to switch over to a Seeker. So the question is, do you have a Seeker on your account? Let's go look. Do you have a Seeker? No Seeker. Okay. So in that case, let's look for another buff extend. Increase buff duration. Okay, so you have 3 buff extenders. Building a Brogni like Infinity team is incredibly hard, and I don't think you're going to do it with the champions that you've got. But you might be able to figure out sort of a speed tune in between where instead of Helicath, well, no, it's still. I'm trying to think, like, could you find a tune where you're alternating Helicath's block damage with his and Brogni's shields? Or his shield that Brogni grows, and then go block damage, shield, block damage, shield, block damage, shield all the way through. And would that be enough? And in that case, again, you don't need Sandlash Survivor. I think Sandlash Survivor needs to come out of this team. I honestly feel like she is not doing much here for you. And you'd be better off either bringing in some kind of... Either if you're going to keep her, you have to speed tune it to get it to 2-to-1. Or you need to potentially pull her out. And if you were going to use a buff extension champion, if you were just going to use one champion to extend buffs, I actually think that that Anchorite is a better choice for a couple of reasons. One is he actually has a little bit of a heal on his A1. He can like use this as a mini cleanse to remove a stun or a slow. So you can actually use, if you can get the buff extension in the right place, you can actually also use it as a cleanse. And then he's got a full heal on a target ally and an increased crit rate and increased crit damage buff on all allies, meaning you could build your ninja at 70% crit rate and still get this extra crit damage out of everybody's kit. So I think he's the better buff extender. And if you're going to go with just one buff extender to try to get to a 2-to-1 speed tune, I think he's the better choice than Sandlash Survivor. So you have that option. You also have the option of going to that speed tune. What's this called again? The Batman Forever speed tune. Trying to find a way to make this work. But that would take a seeker, I think. I don't think you can do this. But you could kind of do that alternating thing. Shield, block damage, see if that works for you. But, you know, if you don't want to speed tune, I'd say the thing that you want to do is just get Sandlash Survivor out of there and bring somebody else. Bring somebody who does damage or somebody who is going to just benefit the team in a different way. So Lenathrel's an interesting option because he gives you an ally attack. Where is it? Where's the ally attack? Why? That's not Lenathrel. That's okay. So you get the crit damage buff, right? And then you team up with allies to attack a single enemy. That's going to make your ninja stronger. He's also got a really nice shield. Yeah, so I mean, it's primarily for the ally attack and the shield. You could certainly bring in Dracomorph. Dracomorph is awesome for clan boss. He's giving you a ton of poisons. He's also giving you a weaken and a decreased defense on the same ability. I think right now on your team, Helicath is your weaken on the A1 and your decreased defense is Ninja, but that's only 50% on his A1. 60%, sorry, it's 60%. So Dracomorph would give you more consistent debuffs plus the poisons. So that could be a way to go. I mean, Mishinaki is also a great champion. It's going to give you more HP burns, decrease defense. This also has a decrease attack, and decrease attack would be something that would extend your life. I think you, let's see. Who are you running? Who is your 5th champion? I know Sandlash Survivor, Brogni, Helicath, Takeover. Takeover was the 5th champion. So you don't have a decrease attack. You have a tanky team without a decrease attack on the boss. So if you're trying to get more turns and survive longer, decrease attack could be very valuable. Now, obviously, when you have block damage, you don't need decrease attack. But if you're surviving through the shield, decrease attack could extend your life there. So you could potentially bring in a decrease attack champion. You could certainly bring in somebody like Mithrala. Try Mithrala, right? Because she gives you a cleanse. She gives you a strengthen. We don't have a strengthen yet. She gives you an additional shield. She gives you increased defense and increased attack. I know you already have increased attack from Brogni, but I don't think you have an increased defense, right? So you're going to get that increased defense. You get the poisons on our A1. These are the champions I would just try. If you don't want to speed tune, who are the champions that you throw in? Champions that bring you ways to improve your damage per turn or extend the number of turns like that you're going to go. So I like the idea of, you know, you could try Rathalos. You want to try booked champions, you know, champions that are fully booked. So yeah, I would probably go Mithrala. Dracomorph's not fully booked. Lenathrel's not fully booked. Mishinaki's not fully booked. Razen's not fully booked. You could certainly try an ally protector, right? He gives you a decreased attack on the A1. It's not going to be 100%, but it's something. Plus that ally protection, which is going to reduce your overall damage, plus the poisons that he brings. So Taragi the Frog would be worth experimenting with. Yeah. So speed tune or try some of these champions that we've talked about. You could bring in Artak. You could try Artak. You'd want to finish off his books, but he brings you a pretty reliable decrease attack. It's 100% chance on 4 turns. He's also magic affinity. He's still going to struggle into force. You know, I mean, so is Dracomorph. So are a lot of these champions. So is Taragi the Frog. But yeah, you could try Artak, certainly. You know, gives you more HP burns, more activations. He's tanky. He leans into the tanky thing you got going on. I would try these champions unspeed tuned first. Just put them in, run them on manual. Don't quick battle them, and then just shut it down before they die and guesstimate how much damage they do. As if you force out, if you come into the upper, like, I don't know if you're on a phone or whatever, but if you force out of the game, if you shut down the game without accepting the key, you don't waste the key. So, yeah, Deacon's an option, right? Gives you that reliable decreased defense, gives you the leech, which could extend your life a little bit, and gives you extra turn meter speed, turn meter fill, that could come around faster. You could certainly try Apothecary. That's another champion to try just to give you even more speed. You already have a speed buff, so it might not be as much value as just a turn meter filler. But a more reliable drop defense, you know, from Deacon, I think could be valuable, and give you more speed. I mean, even Ugo, you know, would give you another decreased defense champion, who also has a mini cleanse and a little bit of a heal plus a leech, you know, so that's more survivability. I think I would just try Mithrala first. Honestly, I think I would try Mithrala, but after Mithrala, I think Deacon is a serious option. Taragi the Frog is a serious option. And you could mess around with some other champions. Artak is a serious option. I think that's likely to be the easiest, cheapest thing to try first. And if it solves your problem, then great. And if it doesn't, then you know that you got to start looking to a speed tune. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and look at Hydra. Now, Hydra is something we could probably actually do something about. I always do this. I always go to dungeons. I don't know why. Hydra is not a dungeon. You said normal, right? Not hard? You're looking for something to clear normal? You want to do hard. Okay. Okay, so I've said this before and I'll say it again. Like, I understand Hydra well. I understand how to build a team, like a non-meta team. Like, if you're just building sort of a classic team, I'm pretty good at doing that. And remembering all the things that you got to remember. There are always so many different factors, though, and I'm not the Hydra guru. You know what I mean? Like, there are content creators who are better at Hydra than I am. But that being said, I think to build successful teams on normal, hard, even brutal, just takes a good fundamental understanding of what you have to bring into a team. So what you want to do is you want to plan for all 6 heads. You don't build a team based on rotation. The rotation doesn't matter, especially if you're free to play. You want a team to be as close to full auto as possible, and you want that team to basically handle everything that's going to pop up, right? So you don't know what the rotation is going to be. You don't know what the substitute heads are going to be. Now, obviously, the new Hydra is a little bit different than the old Hydra, but this doesn't really change. Like, this hasn't changed. So, you know, you have 2 Trundas. I would assume that you want to do a little bit of research into how to optimize a Trunda team. But also, you know, what champions you have built, what champions you have booked, all of that is going to factor in. So we need to first of all start with a provoke and a hex. Like those are the fundamental things that you need. You need a provoke to handle the head of decay or whatever it is, and you need a hex to handle the head of mischief. Like those are really significant. It's helpful to have an AoE slow. That allows you more time to come back around. And if you have an AoE slow, you want it, you know, you could have multiple AoE slows. You actually have several champions that have AoE slows, so that's nice. But honestly, I think the duo that is crazy strong is this duo. Mithrala with Vizix, they're both free to play champions. Everybody can get them. You know, I mean, it might take a while to get Mithrala, but you already got your Mithrala. These 2 champions should form a foundation for a hard team that could go full auto. Speed matters. So I'm going to look right here at the speed of your Vizix. 224 is probably slow for Vizix. For hard, I would say like in the 240s would be good. I would even love to see her up in like the 250s or 260s. For Nightmare, you know, you would have to run her like close to 300, if not over 300. Yes, you can use Provoke and Curse Gear. Yes, you can. This is better. This is better though. So here again, Mithrala is maybe a little bit slow. I would love to see her a little bit faster as well. But this might, you know, depending on who we put with them, this might be enough. But the reason that this duo is so good is Vizix brings you an AoE slow, a decreased speed, which is incredibly strong. Both are void affinity, right? So you don't have to worry about weak hits ever. You don't care about the rotation ever. You get your decreased speed, and then you get your AoE provoke on a 3-turn cooldown when she's booked. Now, it doesn't look like you have her booked, right? You would want the slow on a 3-turn cooldown. You want the provoke on a 3-turn cooldown. Now, Mithrala is giving you the AoE hex. So right now, you've got the slow for every head. You've got the provoke for the head of decay. You've got the hex for the head of mischief. Then you've got the cleanse. You need a cleanse. You need a cleanse. Preferably, you need a block debuffs buff as well. But you need a cleanse to handle other things like provokes, poisons, the other stuff that you get, the weaken that comes out from the head of. Well, I forget which heads bring which debuffs, but you need to handle those debuffs, right? The provoke comes from the head of wrath. But you need to handle those debuffs with a cleanse. Plus, you have a strengthen and a shield, which is going to increase the survivability of your team. You've got an increased defense, which is going to increase the survivability of your team. You've got an increased attack, which is going to allow you to do more damage. Vizix has an ally protection, but she doesn't have any self-defenses, really. She's got a tiny little shield on, I mean, it's not tiny, I guess. She's got an okay shield on her A3, but it's not enough to keep her alive, and her stats aren't enough to keep her alive. So by mixing her in with Mithrala, you've now got an ally protect with a strengthen and with an increased defense and with a shield from Mithrala that is substantial. So that keeps your Vizix alive. Because if Vizix dies, you lose your provoke, you lose your slow, and the run goes to hell. This duo is incredibly powerful. Both void affinities, both free to play. They bring so much of what you need. So once you book Vizix, this and get them up to speed, this duo provides most of what you need. Now, I love Thor. I think Thor is absolutely god tier for Hydra. He brings you an AoE slow, right? So that's also nice. He's got, let's see. He's got a decreased speed here. He's got the increased attack and increased crit damage for himself, which is really nice. He's got the 2 AoEs plus the passive AoE, so he does a ton of damage. His A1's got a chance of repeating the attack. This is a really good damage dealer for Hydra. And if you want him to land that slow, you need to run him with accuracy. If you don't care about the slow, you don't need to run him with accuracy. He would be a backup to Visix slow because you're going to get the 3% resistance every once in a while. She's not going to be, she's not running fast enough. So it's nice to have that backup slow. But basically, you don't even care about the slow. He just does so much damage. Now you need a buff strip or a block debuffs buff. You have the 2 best champions, I think, for this in Ugo and Wukong. You don't need them both. You could run them both, but I would run one in normal and one in hard, or one in hard and one in brutal. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't run them both at the same time. For the team that we're talking about, right? Like, Ugo is bringing a decreased defense and a mini heal and mini cleanse. So that gives you a little bit additional sustain. So that's certainly something to think about. Wukong brings you not only a buff strip, but a block debuffs buff. So he brings the block debuffs that Ugo brings, but he also strips buffs and he brings damage. He brings ignore defense damage on his A2. So depending on who else you put in here, you want one of these champions, but not both. So let's say we went with Wukong for now. You could bring in Mishinaki to give you the decreased defense, and then you're going pretty heavy into the damage. And I would say, what you need now is like a turn meter filler. No, we'd probably go. All right. I actually think we're probably going to start here with. A lot of people don't like Deacon for Hydra, but I actually think he's great. So I would probably do that. We also have Kaimar for buff strips if we want. He gives you cooldown reduction too. So that would probably be the Trunda route if you did something like this, because now you're getting Trunda's nukes back faster. So that would certainly be something to consider. I also like the Artak Rathalos duo. This is a really powerful duo. That's bringing you a decreased attack, HP burns, and then you're activating Rathalos's passive. But again, your Rathalos isn't built yet, and your Artak isn't fully booked yet. So I think right now, let me just check. Was your Thor fully? Your Thor also isn't booked. But yeah, I would probably do this, and this as the foundation of your team. And then you get to choose who to bring in as damage dealer. And one of the heads that we haven't dealt with yet is, so we really need a decreased attack for the Head of Wrath. That would be really nice. Although I think Mithrala on her own with the strengthen and the increased defense and the shield might be enough for the Head of Wrath. So the Head of Wrath might probably at hard you're handled, but if you went up to brutal or nightmare, you'd want to decrease attack for the Head of Wrath. The other thing we need to deal with is the Head of Torment. Now, the best Head of Torment solution is Inquisitor Shamail. But I don't see an Inquisitor Shamail. So if you don't have Shamail, then what you need is a perfect Veil champion. Preferably. You could also ignore the Head of Torment. You really don't want to do that in the upper difficulty levels, but at normal and hard, you could just ignore the Head of Torment. Like, you do have a Rector Drath. She's 50. And she's a very good... She would fit this team pretty well, actually. I do think she would fit this team composition extremely well. Because when the veils are up... First of all, one of the nice things about Rector Drath is she veils herself. It's a conditional veil. Like, people have to be healed up enough. But if you're running fast enough, you'll get that veil up. And that veil will give you additional damage mitigation. So it works well with Visix. She gets additional continuous heals and stuff and passive heals off of having the veil up, which is nice. So she gives you a reviver, which you want. She gives you heals, which you want. She gives you the veils, which help with the Head of Torment. And she gives you also a decreased attack, but it's a single target decrease attack on her A1, but it gives you a little bit of extra coverage there. So that's not bad. She fits the composition really well, but because she's not built, it's hard to say we're going to put her in, right? So I just want to go back to champions for a second and just see if there are any other Veil champions I'm missing. No. So all of the other champions are self-veiling champions, except for Old Hermit Jorg, who only does it on the revive. Yeah, they all basically are self-buffing champ. They're all attack-based self-buffing champ. So without a perfect veil, I would say Rector Drath is like if Hydra's a priority. First of all, Rector Drath she's awesome. She's a god tier epic. As far as epics are concerned, she is really, really high up there in terms of value. She's absolutely god tier for faction crypts. You don't have to build another reviver. She's going to get you through faction crypts. She's great for Doom Tower secret rooms. I put her in all sorts of stuff. Like when you need a really good support, right? Like somebody to keep your team moving. Like she's on par with Syl of the Drakes for survivability for your team, right? Like she does it differently, but she's giving you heals, a decreased attack, perfect. Like her kit synergy is literally perfect. There's no wasted space in her kit. Every skill synergizes with every other skill. And there are very few champions, especially few epics, where that's true. So you could certainly do that. I just noticed you have Stagnite here, and he's booked. He's also awesome because he's going to give you that slow on the single target. Plus, he gives you the AoE decreased defense and decreased attack on the same skill, which is really nice. So that's also the champion to think of down the line. I think you also have a Kemptum in the future is going to give you an AoE hex. So he could be your AoE hex for normal. And so if you need to steal some of your normal champions to use them in hard or brutal, you can still use a Kemptum at normal or at hard. He's a very good champion for this as well. I mean, Haikatoon's not bad. Melga's not bad. You've got her booked. She gives you a shield, some continuous heals, and a revive. So maybe for now, what I would do is the question is, do you put in Syl of the Drakes or do you put in Melga Steel Girdle? Syl of the Drakes has a slow on her A1, gives you a second chance at a decreased speed. She gives you the passive heals and a single target revive. She also gives you a single target increase speed. She's not a great Hydra champion, but you need somebody to keep your team alive right now, and you don't really have it. Like Mithralo's carrying all the weight of the survivability, and you don't have any heals. Deacon gives you a leech, but that's not enough. So Melga is certainly viable. Also, your Tagore is he doesn't give you heals, does he? No, he gives you heals. Heals by this 15% of this champion. So maybe throw him in. He's going to give you a revive. He's going to give you he's going to give you an increased speed, which is going to pair well with Deacon's turn meter fill. And then he's got a decent heal. So you do need some support here. So I would say try Melga, try Tagore. Melga's a little bit more durable. She's going to give you a little bit more survivability because her shield is bigger. Her heal is going to be bigger. Actually, her heal is not bigger. But her shield, she's got a shield instead. And this is an AoE revive, though, which is nice. I'd probably go with Tagore. But you could try them both. And just wait until you get Rector Drath up, right? You could also say, I'm going to bring in Ugo. Give me a little bit of that extra survivability there. And double cover the block debuffs, depending on how fast Wu is. Maybe if you're too slow, you want 2 block debuffs champions. But honestly, I think you should have Ugo in one team and Wukong in the other. So what I would probably do here now is you need at least one really hard-hitting damage dealer. Wukong can be the other damage dealer. And then you need a support champion. So I would go with Tagore to give you extra speed and heals. And then probably, you could certainly bring in Ninja here. I like Thor the best. You could also try Artak, but again, he's not fully booked. So Trunda, Ninja, Thor, Artak, Rathalos. I think Mishinaki, like these are your options. Royal Guard's also an option. Yeah. So what do we have? We're still missing that decrease attack. And I don't know how hard your Wukong hits. But I like this team for the most part. I think for hard mode, this team, when you have your Vizix book, will do the job. I think it'll do the job. Eventually, what you would probably want to do here is replace your Deacon and your Tagore with better champions. And again, you could certainly do something more along the lines of like, maybe you could do this instead, right? The cooldown reduction is going to allow you to get around to your skills faster. You've got the buff strip. You don't have a block debuffs buff. You don't have a block buffs debuff here. So you don't have an Ugo or a Wukong, but it might not matter. You just strip the buffs and then you nuke really hard with your double Trunda, and that's enough. Or you could even like mix in a Trunda with a Thor. This gives you, additional coverage on that slow. I don't think you're going to have a problem with the slow. But yeah, you could think about something like that, You have a lot of options. It's really going to depend on who you want to build for your overall account. So what I mean by that is like, sometimes you're like, I don't really want to build Vizix. Like, I like Vizix just fine. She helps me in Fire Knight normal a little bit. She helps me in Doom Tower a little bit, but I don't really want to invest in her. So you're like, if I'm not going to book Vizix, then all of a sudden this falls apart. And then you're like, okay, now Thor actually gets extra value because he's one of your AoE slow champions. Now you're like, if I'm not building Vizix, I absolutely need to build Thor. Personally, I think you need to build both of them. But if you're like, I need an AoE slow, where are my AoE slows? Right? Like, so we come here and we can just do that real quickly. Where are my AoE slows? On 6-star champion. This is single target. This is a random target. This is single target. This is an AoE slow, but it's not 100%. It's on her A1. She's actually really good. It's 50% though, which is nice. This is the same as the previous Royal Guard. And this is actually, this is single target as well. So you have two 100% AoE champions. One is Void Affinity and one is not, right? And this is a damage dealer who you may not want to build a ton of accuracy on. This is your AoE slow champion for your entire account. This is your AoE slow champion. She should be in every boss fight where you can use a slow. She's an awesome champion. She's really, really good. So I would build her. I would also build Thor because he's one of your best damage dealers. He may be your best AoE damage dealer. Trunda is very good as well. Based on my experience on my account, obviously Trunda is better for Hydra. We know that like her maximum potential is higher. And I do think you should look into the Trunda kind of reset mechanic team with Kymar. I've never run that team. I don't have a reset champion. I don't have a Kymar. I don't have a Yumiko. So you could look into that. Nubkex covers that. I think Bronco covers that. Like you can look at those CC's videos. And with two Trundas already built and a Kymar already built, and this one's fully booked. Is the other one fully booked? Where's the other Trunda? They're both fully booked. You should certainly look into that because potentially you could do a ton of damage in like hard mode Hydra with that. So I would certainly consider that build as well. That's going to give you two really good teams, you know, potentially. And again, you know, think about who's your next AoE Hex champion. Oh, you've actually got two. You've got Mishinaki. I forgot about Mishinaki. So Mishinaki is an AoE Hex champion. Mithrala is an AoE Hex champion. So you need one of them in with the Trunda. Now, Mishinaki also brings you a decreased defense and a decreased attack. I forgot about the decreased attack if champions are if enemies are under Hex. So he potentially brings you Hex, decreased defense, and decreased attack, plus the HP burn and the ally attack on the passive. You mix him in, you know, with that Trunda team and that Kymar, you get those resets. That's that could be a crazy amount of damage. You know, and then a Kempton would be your third AoE Hex champion. I love a Kempton. He's really great. He also gives you 18% speed aura, which is really nice. So you don't have to bring in another champion to do that. Yeah, Naya is nice and potentially, I mean, so again, I'm not the Hydra guru. Like, I understand the mechanics really well and I can get you started on it. But there are some teams out there that I, as a free-to-play player, I've never had the opportunity to build. So for instance, there might be some kind of combination of champions that, let's say, something like Trunda, Kymar, Naya, you know, and then, I don't know. Again, these two seem to form the foundation, but maybe you don't know. You don't need the buff. Maybe something like this, right? Where it's like, so what happens here is Naya has a single target cooldown reduction. You would have to manual this team. You couldn't full auto this team. But you get all of the abilities out. You nuke with Trundas. Kymar resets them, and then Naya resets Kymar. And then they all nuke again. Kymar resets, and now he's resetting Naya, and he's resetting everybody, and then Naya resets him. And so with this combo, you will have 100% uptime on your Hex. You'll have 100% uptime on your decreased speed, on your provoke, but you'll also be using Trunda's big nukes like every single turn. This probably, and again, I've never done this. I've never built this team. I've never had a Kymar. I have Naya, but I don't have another champion to use her with. So this could be a crazy combo. Now, you're not handling the Head of Torment here. Kind of ignoring the Head of Torment. That's fine. You're not really handling the Head of Wrath here. But if you blow up the heads, who cares? Right? If you're killing the heads really fast, who cares? So this could be a crazy powerful team where you're resetting a resetter. Like, they're resetting each other over and over and over again. So Kymar has, as far as I remember, they're both 2-turn cooldown reduction, right? Let me just double check. So Kymar's, no, this is a full reset. It's on a 5-turn cooldown. And then Naya is doing a 2-turn reduction on one target. So she would turn his 5-turn cooldown into a 3-turn cooldown. Right? And every time he would reset everybody's skills, including Naya's. And so this basically becomes a 3-turn cooldown. You may even want it as a 4-turn cooldown, depending on the cooldown of these. Like, this is a 5-turn cooldown. This is a 4-turn cooldown. So yeah, okay. So, you know, you could potentially do something like that. Now, you're not bringing a weaken. You're not bringing in decreased defense with that team. You know, so it's like you're not really maximizing the damage. So maybe it's not this combo, right? Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's Mishinaki here in this role. Now you've got the decreased defense as well as the Hex. You lose the shields, right? You lose all the protection for Vizix. So Vizix is potentially vulnerable here. So maybe you get rid of her. You don't even have a provoke, and you just go with the slow, and you just go massive nukes. I don't even know. You know, like, that's something that you could experiment with and play around with and have fun with. But it's going to require that you book a lot of legendary champions, right? Like, you still need to book Vizix. You still need to book Thor. You know, there are a ton of really good legendaries that you haven't booked yet. So I think one of the things to help you everywhere, but not just in Hydra, is going to be choosing the champions to book next. Right? I like Vizix. I like Rathalos, certainly. But I think you've got to decide like Rathalos or Thor, not both. Right? Because you already have the 2 Trundas. I mean, realistically, you might have all the damage you need. You might not even need the Thor. Just stick with the Trundas for now. You've got the ninja. You've got the damage that you need. So maybe finish Mishinaki. Finish Vizix. Finish Wukong. Finish Artak. Like, those are maybe more priorities than, I'm assuming he's finished. Yeah. You know. So, like, this is unfortunate. I think, you know, what happens, and this happens with a lot of players, they get great champions. Dracomorph is a great champion. You take him to 6 stars. You want to use him. You throw 2 books into him. And then you realize you don't have enough books. You've got 3 books here. 2 books here. Right? You've got 8 books here. You got 1 book here. If you took all those books and put them into one champion, you'd have one really excellent champion helping your account. Instead, you've got 4 champions who are suboptimal. And in fact, when I 6-star champions, I look at this. Like, you've got some 6-star, you've got some 5-star legendaries who could be valuable. You got some 5-star epics who could be valuable. Maybe you have some 5-star rares who could be valuable. So what I do is I come in here and I think to myself, like, how many books do I have? What kinds of books do I have? I have no legendary tomes. So if I take, let's say I take Loki to 6-star because I kind of like his kit or whatever. I've got a 5-star soul on him. I want to take him to 6 stars. The chance that he gets booked is minimal. So I have to think about what value do I get out of him unbooked. He might help me in Faction Wars. He might help me a little bit in Arena. He might help me in a couple of places. But otherwise, he's not a lot of value. So maybe I don't book him. I mean, maybe I don't take him to 6 stars. I don't even bother taking him to 6 stars because I probably get all the Faction War value that I really need out of him at 5. You know, I'm probably not going to use him in Arena because he's not really booked. Like, he's not giving me a ton of new stuff. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to build a 6-star epic instead, or I'm going to build a 6-star rare instead. Or I'm going to build a 6-star uncommon instead, who I can book with copies of himself. That's an opportunity to build your Armiger, to build your Shield Guard, right? To build maybe your Soulbond Bowyer, or, you know, your Renegade, like maybe even a Cold Heart, you know, depending on who you have, which rares you have, rather than build another legendary who you can't book. You know, I mean, we've got great legendaries here who aren't great until they're booked, right? Solus, great legendary, not booked. Dracomorph, great legendary, not booked. Lanatharil, good legendary, not booked. Razin, good legendary, not booked. UDK, great legendary, not booked. Wukong, great legendary, not booked. You know, like, it's a theme. It's a theme. And like some champions, like Ultimate Death Knight, like this passive, Too Awesome to Die, works 100% without him being booked. So this is another option. If you're looking to 6-star legendary, find a 6-star, or find a legendary who gives you value at 6-star without books. Ultimate Death Knight fits that bill. Arbiter fits that bill. She doesn't need to be booked to give you her A3 and her speed aura, right? So you can hold off on this. Seal of the Drakes, great, you've already got her booked, but like her passive doesn't require being booked. So she gives you a lot of value unbooked. And then there are champions, you have to really, really book them to get the full value out of them. Rathalos, not great unbooked. Like, he's okay, but much, much better booked. Physics, much, much better booked. Artak, way better booked. You know, Drexler, don't need him booked. Leave him unbooked. You never have to put a book in him. He's going to give you 85%, 90% of his value without books. You know? So. And it can be the same with epics. Like, I think I saw you have, maybe it was down here. Do you have a Doom Priest sitting around? I know you have, so Madame Saris, so her A3, which is her biggest value, doesn't actually get better like you get cooldown reduction, but it doesn't actually get better without, like with books. It's not an increased percentage. This is a 100% chance. So you could actually run her unbooked. You've already booked her. She's great. She's worth books. You know, same thing with like Allure. Like her A1 doesn't actually get better with books. So you can run her unbooked. You know, so if you are lacking books, look to bring up a champion who's going to give you a lot of value without a need for books. And otherwise, focus on the champions that you have. You have great champions. Just focus on the ones, like pick the next one. Pick the next one. It's probably Mishinaki or Artak or Vizix, depending on what you want to do. Like those would be my 3 first choices. And I guess Wukong. Like I think I said that before. Those are the 4 that I'm looking at. Thor as well. But I don't think you need Thor because of your Chundas right now. So like the reason we want to book him, actually, yeah, maybe you don't need Wukong booked. His A3 doesn't improve its chance. It's just a cooldown reduction. And his A2 doesn't improve. It does improve damage, and this is his hardest hitting skill. But the sheep thing doesn't get better. So yeah, maybe leave him unbooked for a minute. So Mishinaki, Artak, Vizix. Those feel like the champions to book next. Yeah. Now, as far as where do you get books, you have to look for every tournament, every event that has a book as a reward, you have to consider. You don't necessarily have to do them, you know, but you have to come here and look and say, hey, is there a legendary tome? You know, is there a legendary tome? Okay, there isn't. Like your bottleneck is no longer your champions. Your bottleneck is your books. Halloween Deck of Fate. I think this has a chance of giving a legendary tome. So it's like maybe there's only 1 or 2 in the whole thing, but you also have, you know, the rare chests can give you legendary skill tome. So if you get 1 out of this, you know, it might be worth it. Now, where are we getting our points from? Get champions, summon soul. So it's a summon Deck of Fate, which is the worst kind. Oh, yeah, get champions and summon souls from soul stones. So, you know, maybe you don't use your resources there. Champion trainings always have 1 legendary tome. It's a pretty high. It's like 11,000 points or 10,000 points. So it's always kind of hard to get those. And you're not trying to grind like a ton of new champions, right? Because you already have too many champions. But you could do the champion trainings to get your legendary tomes. Doom Tower hard mode has where are they? I think it has 2. There's 1 here at floor 80. Maybe it has 3. 1 at floor 80. 1 at floor 100. So it has 2. I don't think normal. Maybe normal has 1. It might have 1 at the end. I think it's usually epic tomes. But so, you know, Doom Tower hard. Try to focus on this. You're clearing Doom Tower normal, that's great, but where you are at level 90 whatever with the, you know, champions that you have, like you should be clearing hard mode soon. Like this should be a priority. So maybe start the month in hard mode. You know what I mean? Like get your focus hard mode first rather than normal. Like you don't have to clear normal to do hard. You can just start in hard. Go ahead and do that. Also, if you have any quests or missions that aren't completed, you know, that could give you tomes. I know these can be hard to do, you know, but if you can get through these, that's a way to get them. Cintranos. It's the progress missions. Like these give you some legendary tomes. Not a lot, but every one counts, right? Because if you can like get Mishinaki finished or get Vizix finished or get Artak finished, that's going to also advance your ability to like clear Doom Tower every month, you know, and do that. So I would definitely focus on any place that can give you a legendary tome has to be your top priority. And I wouldn't worry too much about champions. Like, you don't have a huge roster. You're going to benefit from bringing up a few champions every once in a while. But for right now, I would just focus on getting the champions that you've 6-starred fully booked, fully optimized, built to the best of your ability. Get as much speed as possible. Focus on improving your Great Hall, your area bonuses. Oh, you're doing great there. You're doing awesome. So keep doing that, and you should be in good shape. What gear set will you use on Rector Drath? Okay, that's a good question. Rector Drath is a support champion. All support champions should be in tanky gear. Now, if they're support champions who use debuffs, then they need perception, like tanky perception gear probably. If they don't use debuffs, then you want stuff like, let's go ahead and look at Rector Drath. So I realize this might be just a holdover. You just put her in some gear. Lifesteal gear is for damage dealers only. It's never for supports or tanks. I see tanks built in lifesteal gear all the time, and it's an awful build for champions that don't hit hard because it's giving you 30% of your damage dealt as healing. But if you're dealing very little damage, you're getting very little healing. You would be much better off putting her in regen and immortal. That's going to keep her alive. And as long as she's alive, she can always revive somebody else who dies. So you do have a lot of options here. Let's look at some sets. Now, she benefits from accuracy only for her A1. It's only a single target A1. That's not bad. That helps you out in boss fights like Dragon, Ice Golem, Doom Tower bosses. But it doesn't help you out against Hydra. It doesn't help you out, in some other places. Also, it's only 50%. It's not super reliable. Could help you out in clan boss. But so, you can decide how much accuracy you need on her. I run my Rector Drath with no accuracy, basically. She just has the extra accuracy from whatever, is lying around. So regeneration, certainly good. Stalwart is okay. I don't think, usually I save this for tanks as opposed to healers, but if you're taking a lot of AoE damage and you need her to be survivable, certainly Stalwart is an option. Immortal can always be a 2-piece that you throw in with anything else that is tanky. Resilience is another really good 2-piece set that you can put 2 or 4 or 6 pieces on her for. It's going to give you a lot of sturdiness. Plus, you're going to have a lot of it because it's a forge set. Guardian is okay. If you have an ally protector and you're worried about that ally protector surviving, this is like it's not quite as good as a regen set. It's 10% healing instead of 15% healing, but you're also giving a little bit of an ally protect. She could play that role. She could be tanky enough where she could wear a Guardian set, but it's a risk to put your only reviver in Guardian. I'll say that. But in a really tanky team, it might be okay. It might help. Protection would be okay. Protection would actually be okay for her. I don't think this is a high priority for her. But if you can get to 9-piece, you get allies deal 5% more damage per each buff placed by the wearer, and she places continuous heals and the perfect veil. So you're going to get at least 2 buffs from her. Plus those buffs are going to be protected more often, so they're not going to be stripped off in other places where like bosses can remove buffs. So think about like Amius the Lunar Archon or like the Griffin boss in Doom Tower. So those bosses strip buffs, right? So this would protect those buffs if you're using her in those places. That's fine. You could use her in protection. I wouldn't put her in Stone Skin. Bolster's another good set, right? It's always good to have somebody in like a shield set or a bolster set. So I didn't say shield, but you could put her in a shield set. I didn't see a shield actually. So you don't have any shield gear. But you could put her in a shield set or a bolster set. That would provide some survivability. Not awesome for Hydra, but awesome for other places, for, wave content. Defiant is always good. It's like a slightly improved Stalwart, because it can be 2 pieces or 4 pieces or 6 pieces. You get extra defense plus the AoE damage reduction. Righteous isn't bad. Righteous isn't bad. It's okay to have resistance on your healer and reviver. That's not a bad thing. You can certainly do supersonic, although You're not having a lot of turn meter fill on the team. Yeah. So, I mean, any of those would be good. I would probably lean towards just a regen and immortal set, or like a shield set with an immortal set maybe mixed in. That would be really good. And if you don't have all of that, I would certainly look at Resilient. You don't want her in your best gear because she's not your best champ, right? But you need her in gear that's appropriate to her job. So if you're primarily using her in Hydra, figure out what you need to keep her alive in Hydra, because she has to survive, because she's keeping the entire team going. But if you're running her with Mithrala and with Vizix, you've got a lot of protections there. And so now it's just like maybe she can fit in Guardian, right? Maybe you don't need the shield set. Maybe you just go with regen. Or maybe you go with a little bit of speed, make her faster, like do 2 or 4 pieces of speed and then immortal on top of that. Because maybe she doesn't need all of the regeneration. Yeah. Hey, BM, good to see you, buddy. Now, this is my first and it's my only today. Yeah. We did some Fateless stuff at the beginning. Curing set would be great on Rector. Curing set is interesting. I hate the set. I think it's an awful set. There are a few champions it would be decent on, and Rector, yeah, if you had really good curing pieces, you could put her in curing. Yeah, I think it gives you a 30% increased healing. So if her healing weren't enough and you needed to boost her healing, you could do that. I would just prefer to make her faster. Like, you get more healing by making her faster. Plus, you get more everything by making her faster. Whereas if you put curing on, all you get is more healing out of her. So I would rather put her in 2 sets of speed than 1 4-piece set of curing. I think it's 4-piece set, or maybe it's a 2-piece set. I don't even remember. Because I never use curing. Yeah. Yeah, BM, I'm sorry, buddy. Yeah, so one of the things that you are right about is you have a lot of magic affinity champions, and all of your damage dealers seem to be magic affinity, with the exception here of Solus and Rathalos, and I guess Wukong. You can count him as a damage dealer, but like you have Mishinaki, Rhonda, Trunda, Ninja, Thor, Artak. So yeah, you've got a lot of magic damage dealers. Even your Royal Guards, you got double Royal Guards. They're both magic. So you could look to, and then you have Kale and Frozen Banshee here as well. You could look to try to get a damage dealer who's not magic affinity. You have Cleopteryx, who actually is not a bad champion. She's a decent champion. She also has an AoE hex, I think. Where is it? Yeah. Attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance of placing a hex debuff for 3 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. So you also have Yannicka. So if you're looking for damage dealers who are not magic affinity, these are both decent. They're not god tier, but they're decent. I'd say they're A tier champions. Yannicka obviously took a hit on Hydra recently with the Wixwell nerf. Or the shield nerf, I should say. It's not a Wixwell nerf, technically. You have Skrank, and you also have you have a Kemptum, who are good void affinity damage dealers. That might give you some flexibility. Here he is. Like, if you can't find like a great champion that you really love in Force affinity or in Spirit affinity, you can always go with void affinity champions. You do have Husk, who's a decent max HP nuker in Force affinity. He also gives you a backup provoke on your A1, so he's a pretty good Hydra champion. You have Slixus, who's an excellent arena nuker, void affinity. I don't think you need help in arena, really. But that's another void affinity damage dealer. So you do have some void affinity options. They're in the epic category. You have Phoenix here, who's 6 stars already, who is Spirit Affinity. I don't really like Zargala. She's okay. I don't really like Thylissia. She's okay. You do have Magnar. You do have Magnar, who's pretty solid and can be used in PvE, depending on how you build them. But yeah, your only real options at the legendary rarity are Rathalos, Wukong, and Solus, who honestly are all pretty awesome. So it's not like you're without options here. You know, they're all really, really good. They're all good at different things, though. You know, and Rathalos typically is best when paired with somebody like Artak. This is a really, really nice duo. So if you were like, hey, I've already got Artak most of the way booked, I'll book him next, you could lean into Rathalos, you know, and you could say, okay, now that's going to be my non-magic affinity damage dealer. But I think since Wukong is already giving you the buff strips, right, that you need in like Hydra and in Arena and stuff, like you could lean into him as well. And once you book him, you just get more and more damage out of him, right? You do get this additional chance to stun on the A1, which is nice. But most of the books just go into damage and cooldown reduction. He's awesome for Hydra. He's also awesome for Arena. He's just fantastic in Arena. You can also use him in certain cheese strategies and stuff like that. So, you know, and then Solus, I mean, my understanding is that for a long time, he was the hardest hitting defensive based damage dealer in the game. He may still be. I think like Stultus, Dragonbane, and obviously there's Newt, which is a little bit of a different thing, right? But I think Harima, there are some other champions who maybe contend for that crown. But my understanding is that he's incredibly hard hitting. Again, I don't have him. I've never had him, but just, you know, that based on the minimal research I've done on Solus, he's really good. So I do think for now, you know, you have your Magnar, who is booked. And then you have your Wukong and your Rathalos, who are not booked. And your Solus, who's not booked. So that gives you a lot of options. And then down the road, you have, you know, your Cleopteryx, your Yannica, and then your Void Affinity, you know, your Skrank and your Kemptum. You got plenty of damage dealer options, and you're a Husk. You also have Ruella. I love Ruella. She's a single target hitter, but she's a great debuffer plus damage dealer. Yeah. Remember, damage is like easy. Damage tends to be easy to come by. I mean, like if we just look at your 6-star champion, let's just do this. You have 50 of them. How many of them qualify as damage dealers? Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. You got 56 stars and 22 of them are damage dealers. And I mean, you could argue that more of them are, you know, so you don't need that many damage dealers. I would say if 20% of your roster is damage dealers, that's probably enough. You know, 80% of your champions should be utilities and supports. Like, because there are still things that you're missing, right? Like you have some cleansers and you have, actually, this is actually one of your better cleansers because she has both a cleanse and a block debuffs. They're not on the same skill though. You know, like that's a thing that you could use. You don't really have a lot of great turn meter fillers. You have Arbiter for Arena and you have Deacon and High Katoon who are good and can be used, but like it wouldn't be bad to have, you know, somebody else doing that. And it's like, obviously you have to go with what you've pulled, right? Like if you haven't pulled an Elva, you haven't pulled an Elva. You know what I mean? Like that's just a thing. If you haven't, you know, there's Lysandra out there, but you never pulled her. So, okay. But when you're targeting things like fusion, when you're targeting free champions, like the Lydia would do huge things for this account. Like, I know you're not there yet, but like that would be a target, you know. It's like, okay, obviously better gear is better gear, but who are the champions that are going to give me new things? You know, how many provokers do you have? Like, you've got one good provoker, I guess two. Drexstar is a pretty good provoker as well, but his is only 60% chance. Hers is 100% chance. You know, stun champions. Do you have an AoE stun champion? It's like, well, you got one. You got Thor. I don't see another one. You do have an AoE freeze. You know, I saw Shiramani. Like, that's another AoE freeze. What about the crowd controls? What about the slows? What about the increased speeds? What about the block debuffs? What about, you know, the turn meter fillers, the turn meter decreasers, turn meter decrease? Where's that? You know, where's the turn meter steal? Where's the 100% turn meter steal? Where's your, you know, your Skimfos or your Man Eater or, you know, your Geomancer or, you know, like whatever. And it's like, again, maybe you haven't pulled these champions, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, you want to keep looking for new skills to roll into your roster, and damage is the most common skill. So maybe we just stick with the damage dealers we've got, maximize a couple of those, and start leaning into the other areas that we need. You're not that far off from Lydia. Let's take a look. 901. Yeah, you are close. You've got 44 stars left to go. Knights Revenant. See this 57 stars right here? You know who solves that problem? Rector Draft. Rector Draft probably solves that problem. Let's just look. I'm just curious, because maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you have somebody else. Yeah. So Rector Draft at 60 might solve this problem. Getting her out of this set might just solve the problem. Like, if you just got her into a regen set or got her into a shield set, that might solve the problem. Because this lifesteal is doing nothing for you on her right now, except giving you a couple of stats. You know, Eric's is certainly awesome at 5 stars. Not as much damage, but still really, really good champion. I like Sinesha a lot. That gives you some additional heals. You've got that lockout, potentially the cooldown lockout. Puts a target skill and cools down. This works on any bosses that can be locked out. Not every boss can. I forget about I think all of the faction crypt faction crypt bosses can be locked out, but I'm not 100% sure. You know, you got the rebalancing. You got the AoE A1. Put her in a stun set. Get her out of this lifesteal. Put her in a stun set. That's going to give you more lockdown from her AoE A1, right? Think about putting Eric's in a stun set. AoE 1, AoE A2, ally protection, right? Turn this off because she's 5 stars. That's not enough. But put her in a stun set. So stun set, 6 star, 6 star in any kind of good damage gear. And, you know, and then Thylesia, who's your other 60. And I think she's got an AoE. She's got 2 AoEs as well. So you could also put her in a stun set if you wanted. Just lock it out. Or just have her deal damage. You could put her in lifesteal. She hits decently hard. You could put her in lifesteal. You'll clear that. The Knights Revenant are a hard faction to clear. So getting all the way to 21 and clearing that is actually tough. And CC, like crowd control, is a way to do that. So a couple of stun sets could help you. You might still have to fight certain fights 20 or 30 times to get the RNG to work in your favor. But with the champions that you have for Knights Revenant, my guess is that you can get there. You know, Lizardmen is a little bit tricky. That's a tricky faction. Yeah, you're not quite there on this. I like Broodlord actually for this. I think he pairs well with sort of the tanky thing, you know, the tanky way that you're going. I actually kind of like Terex. I think Terex is pretty solid. But Slixus is probably too squishy at 5 stars. Your damage dealer should be at 6 stars. So you could use Jareg at 5, but ally protection is tough at 5 stars. Let's see if you have anybody in the vault. Without a reviver here, you're going to be in trouble. But the good news is you have Broadmaw. Broadmaw is a reviver, gives you 2 random dead allies. So if Lydia is a priority, go fuse a Broadmaw. You have copies of all the champions. You know, if you don't want to use up this 40 that you've built, like just go get the uncommons and fuse another copy of that rare. But fuse yourself a Broadmaw during the next champion chase or next fusion event or whatever, or CVC. That's going to solve. That'll do more to solve Lizardman than anything else that you can do right now. Yeah, so that's definitely worthwhile for you. And then, you know, again, you're getting closer and closer. Skinwalkers is at 54. Let's see if anybody's really low. 54 is probably your lowest. So Skinwalker, Crypt. So Rain Beast is the only reviver you have. And you have to kill a target. So these kinds of revivers are not useful against bosses. They do nothing against bosses because in order to get your champion back, you have to kill the boss, right? And when you kill the boss, the fight's over. Although, I don't know, maybe if this one activates anyway. So this is going to be a little bit tricky. Steel Skull is solid. Brings you a really nice cleanse and heal on a single target. Plus an increased defense and another heal on the A3. So if you can't get a reviver, and Hofaries tends to be the best one. If you can't get Hofaries, consider bringing in Steel Skull and going tanky. And just trying to use, you know, use the heals and survivability. Akempton can give you nice speed aura. I like Feign for debuffs on the boss, and you get that decreased attack in addition to the decreased defense and weaken, so that can increase your survivability as well. So if you can land that decreased attack, land your Steel Skull. But here's the thing. People think of Feign as a damage dealer. She's really squishy. You don't want her as a damage dealer. Just build her with accuracy and as tanky as possible because she doesn't need to do damage. All she needs to do is land all of her debuffs. Her poisons will do the damage. She can decrease turn meter. She's got a great kit. She's just super, super squishy. So HP percentage chest piece, you know, like you don't need crit rate on her. You don't need 100% crit rate on this champion. It's nice, right? It's nice to have crit rate on her, but defense percentage on the gauntlets or another HP percentage, all defensive amulets and stuff. You know, if you can get the accuracy with her with like some resilience gear or immortal gear, like do that, give her additional survivability. You know, that's the way I would go with her, especially if you're running her at 50, you have to. And then maybe you could do it. Maybe you could do it with Steel Skull. Yeah. Okay, so I hope that's helped you. We bounced around a lot today. I hope people found some of this informative. If Rain Beast kills one of the boss's minions, yes, that does count. That would revive people. If the boss has a minion, not all bosses have minions. Yeah. So, yeah, so definitely let me know, you know, how you're progressing. I know this is your alt account, so you probably don't put as many hours into this account as on your main account, but you've been playing it a long time. Clearly, you're still attached to it. It's, you know, a level 93 account. So the things that you've learned from your main account, you can definitely apply here. I don't know if I'm assuming this is a free to play account. I don't know if your main account is. But like I said, this is something that I try to repeat as often as possible in my videos and in my live streams, especially for spenders who spend on shards. Like if you are a shard spender or you're a free to play player, your roster is rarely the bottleneck on your account, right? The thing that actually slows your progress down, there are two things. One is you're not focusing on gear enough. You're not accumulating the gear, rolling up the gear, targeting gear enough. And then the second is you're not optimizing the champions. Masteries and books matter. You need to get those books. You need to get those masteries fully done. You know, I don't know who, like if everybody has all of them, but it's like you need to get gear, books, masteries. That's how you optimize champions. In addition, you need your Great Hall and your area bonuses, because those are also stats. You need your blessings and your souls. You need, all of that stuff to get your champions that you have built to 60 as strong as possible. And if you don't have a way to utilize a 6-star, don't bring them up to 6-star, right? Like sit on the chicken. Just sit on the chickens until you have a champion that is going to actually improve your account in a way, give you something new. Here's a Morrigan who's at level 50, who's going to give you a couple of things like that you don't have really a lot of. First of all, she's got this healing 100% heal reduction debuff at the start of every turn, right? And then she's got decrease turn meter. We talked about that not really being on your account, right? Turn meter decrease, turn meter fill, increase speed. This is a champion who brings something new to your roster. You don't have the books for her right now. I'm not saying you should bring her up right now. I'm saying this is a champion that you would look at. 100% chance of stealing all buffs from a target enemy. It's a single target, but still pretty nice, right? It's got a decreased speed on the A1, always nice. But it's really this A3 and this passive that are like just things you don't really have in your roster. And you might not think Morrigan is better than like Eric's, or she's not better than Ignatius, or she's not better than Loki. Or maybe, she's not. Maybe she's not. But she gives you something that those champions don't give you, right? Because those just kind of copy other champions that you already have built. And she doesn't. She's giving you a new wrinkle to your account. So if you take up a 6-star, you always want to think of two things. One is it giving me something new for my roster? And two, can I optimize the champion now or in the near future? Or if not, do they give me a lot of value unbooked? Right? That's the only reason to take them to 6 stars. Either I can optimize them or they give me value unbooked, And there are, maybe 10% of champions, 15% of champions will give you decent value unbooked. And so you just focus on those instead until you collect the books and optimize the champions that you do have at 6 stars. So, like I said, focus on legendary tomes, keep doing your masteries, grinding your masteries, and don't 6-star any new champions that aren't going to give you, value. Now, granted, if you're doing the champion training or something, yeah, you might 6-star some champions just because you have to, and that's fine. And then look at your faction wars teams. Like, think about tanks or revivers, even unbooked, who give you value in faction crypts. Maybe a damage dealer for faction crypts who's going to give you more value at 6 stars, even unbooked, like a Cleopteryx, like an Eric's. You're like, oh, hey, more survivability on that damage dealer, more damage on that damage dealer, even unbooked is going to be good for faction wars. And then just target the factions that you need. That's another thing that you could do. But really, really just focus on optimizing your champs. Oh, this is your main account. Okay. You mixed up the accounts. Okay, great. Great. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so just a quick reminder, I am going to be on the Fateless podcast this week. So we are recording on Friday. I forget if I think it releases on Saturday. I think it releases on Saturday because they do edit it and stuff like that. But I'm excited about that. I'm excited to talk to the Fateless crew about Godforge. If you have any questions that you'd really like me to ask, in fact, what I think I'll do is I'll put up a channel in my Discord today that's just like questions for the Fateless crew. And then you can go ahead and put all of your questions there. And then I'll pick, the 5 or 6 best. I don't know how many I'll get to ask because, like I said, it's only about a 45-minute podcast. So chances are I'll get, half a dozen to 10 questions, and that'll be that. And I have some of my own as well. But, if there are questions that I keep seeing people really want to hear about, then I'll ask those questions. So definitely check that out. You're going to want to be a member of our Discord so you get all that action, and I'll announce when I'm on the Fateless podcast on the Discord and all that stuff. And again, sorry for the lack of videos lately. Like I said, life has been a bit bumpy for us recently, but we're getting a handle on it, and hopefully I'll be back. Maybe this week, maybe next week, with a regular slate of videos. And thanks for hanging out. It's been fun. Thanks to Hoax for letting me tool around on your account. As always, that is an expression of trust that I appreciate and I don't take for granted. All right, that's it for me, folks. I hope you have a good week. And I'll see you soon.